This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area. This, this, this should be played. This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
Shalom, Salama, Siyemi, Shalom, family abroad. Welcome back to Red Letter Rap. It's Man Walls T, aka Red Letter Rap. You already see we got the family in the building tonight. Go ahead and say what's happening, family.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
That's what's happening.
Shabbat Shalom, Israel. Love y'all. Shabbat Shalom.
That's what's happening. Yeah, I see YouTube has been messing with people's like the reaction time on this. Like even with my phone, like it didn't go live directly on my phone. So some people were getting this notification late, like way late.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been noticing that. I know Brother Kara said that the other day about his too, and that was right. Like I was sitting there already in the chat section, you know, waiting for it to start on up, and then even when it did, you know, like it might have started up, and then next thing you know, like maybe 5 minutes on in, then I got the notification on my phone. It vibrated and said, "You can watch Covenant Awakenings."
And that's what happened to me, brother, when I was on the show. Remember, I told you I was on the show and I rung the bell, and I was on the show,
mm-hmm.
and it sent it to me while I was on the show, about 5 minutes in the show.
Right. So yeah, I definitely understand that if it's if people show up late tonight, you know, I absolutely understand. We got one watching right now. But yeah, I'm really wanting to go ahead and get started because I know some folks is just going to go ahead and catch this on the humbug anyway. But as a quick little recap, you know what I'm saying, into the scripts, I wanted to do one little recap and then go into prayer before we go into starting. So the recap, we had two stories when we last left off. All right, the story we left off from was Joseph finally coming into Egypt for the first time, being sold as a slave. And then the story before that is when we finished off where Levi and Simeon had laid waste to Shechem, and then the other kings of Canaan had all tried to come to war against, you know, the sons of Jacob, and they laid waste to, like, I think it was like 6 or 7 cities, like 6 days of war. And on the 7th day, they rested from war. And then after that, all the kings had came to make peace with them. And so after they made peace with them, then we got into our story of where we got Joseph being now sold into slavery because of his dream of constantly being the one to rule over his brothers and sisters, or rule over his other brothers. And so he kept getting that right there, and it made his brothers mad at him. So that's why they, you know, tossed him in the pit, and then they was going to go ahead and kill him. But then Reuben had to stand up for him and was like, nah, we shouldn't kill him. We don't want his blood on our hands. We don't want that. You know, we'll just go ahead and sell him into slavery. And, you know, Judah was like, yep, that's the one. That's the ticket. So they end up selling Joseph into slavery. So let's see here. Shabbat Shalom, Ruhama A. Popped in the Greek. Thank you. I know they're getting it in over there on Elephant Man Podcast. I can't wait to tune back into that later on tonight. I'm definitely gonna rewatch that because they was going in on some good history too. Yeah, Elephant Man brought out some good stuff. He had a good little timeline showed up too. from the prophets and some things going on. So I definitely want to check into that. Definitely want to catch back up into that. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get it jumping, family. Chapter 43. And when the sons of Jacob had sold their brother Joseph to the Midianites, their hearts were smitten on account of him, and they repented of their acts, and they sought for him to bring him back, but could not find him. And Reuben returned to the pit in which Joseph had been put, in order to lift him out and restore him to his father. And Reuben stood by the pit, and he heard not a word. And he called out to Joseph, Joseph, and no one answered or uttered a word. And Reuben said, Joseph has died through fright, or some serpent has caused his death. And Reuben descended into the pit, and he searched for Joseph, and could not find him in the pit. And he came out again. And Reuben tore his garments, and he said, the child is not there. And how shall I reconcile my father about him if he be dead? And if he went to his brethren and found them grieving on account of Joseph, and counseling together how to reconcile their father about him. And Reuben said unto his brethren, I came to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not there. What then shall we say unto our father? For my father will not only seek the lad from me. And his brethren answered him, saying, Thus and thus we did, and our hearts afterwards smote us on account of this act. And we now sit to seek a pretext how we shall reconcile our father to it. And Reuben said unto them, What is this that you have done to bring down the gray hairs of our father, and sorrow to the grave? The thing is not good that you have done. And Reuben sat with them, and they all rose up and swore to each other not to tell this thing unto Jacob. And they all said, The man who will tell this to our father or his household, or who will report this to any of the children of the land, we will all rise up against him and slay him with the sword. And the sons of Jacob feared each other in this matter, from the youngest to the oldest, and no one spoke a word, and they concealed the thing in their hearts. And they afterward sat down to determine and invent something to say to their father Jacob concerning all these things. And Issachar said unto them, Here is an advice for you, if it seem good in your eyes to do this thing. Take the coat which belongeth to Joseph, and tear it, and kill a kid of the goats, and dip it in its blood, and send it to our father. And when he seeth it, he will say, An evil beast has devoured him. Therefore tear ye his coat, and behold, his blood will be upon his coat. And by your doing this, we shall be free of our father's murmurings. And Issachar's advice pleased them, and they hearkened unto him. And they did according to the word of Issachar, which he had counseled them. And they hastened and took Joseph's coat and tore it. And they killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood of the kid, and then trampled it in the dust. And then they sent the coat to their father Jacob by the hand of Naphtali. And they commanded him to say these words, We had gathered in the cattle, and had come as far as the road to Shechem, and farther. When we found this coat upon the road in the wilderness, dipped in blood and in dust. Now therefore know whether it be thy son's coat or not. And Naphtali went, and he came unto his father, and he gave him the coat. And he spoke unto him all the words which his brethren had commanded him. And Jacob saw Joseph's coat, and he knew it, and he fell upon his face to the ground, and became as still as a stone. And he afterward rose up and cried out with a loud and weeping voice, and he said, It is the coat of my son Joseph. And Jacob hastened and sent one of his servants to his sons, who went to them and found them coming along the road with the flock. And the sons of Jacob came to their father about evening. And behold, their garments were torn, and dust was upon their heads. And they found their father crying out and weeping with a loud voice. And Jacob said unto his sons, Tell me truly, what evil have you this day suddenly brought upon me? And they answered their father Jacob, saying, We were coming along this day after the flock, and had been gathered in, and we came as far as the city of Shechem by the road of the wilderness. And we found this coat filled with blood upon the ground, and we knew it. And we sent it unto thee, if thou couldst know it. And Jacob heard the words of his sons, and he cried out with a loud voice, and he said, It is the coat of my son. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is rent in pieces. For I sent him this day to see whether it was well with you and well with the flocks, and to bring me word again from you. And he went as I commanded him, and this has happened to him this day, whilst I thought my son was with you. And the sons of Jacob answered and said, He did not come to us, neither have we seen him, or seen him from the time of our going out from thee until now. And when Jacob heard their words, he again cried aloud. And he rose up and tore his garments, and he put sackcloth upon his loins. And he wept bitterly, and he mourned, and lifted up his voice in weeping, and exclaimed and said these words, Joseph, my son, O my son Joseph, I sent thee this day after the welfare of thy brethren, and behold, thou hast been torn into pieces. Through my hand this has happened to my son. It grieves me for thee, Joseph, my son. It grieves me for thee. How sweet wast thou to me during life, and now how exceedingly bitter is thy death to me. Oh, that I had died in thy stead, Joseph, my son, for it grieves me sadly for thee, my son. And my son, O my son, Joseph, my son, where art thou? Where hast thou been drawn? Arouse from thy place, and come and see my grief for thee, O my son Joseph. Come now and number the tears gushing from my eyes down my cheeks, and bring them up before Yahuwah, that his anger may turn from me. O Joseph, my son, how didst thou fall? By the hand of one by whom no one had fallen from the beginning of the world unto this day? For thou hast been put to death by the smiting of an enemy, inflicted with cruelty. But surely I know that this has happened to thee on account of the multitude of my sins. Arouse now and see how bitter is my trouble for thee, my son. Although I did not rear thee, nor fashion thee, nor give thee breath and soul, but it was Elohim who formed thee, and built thy bones, and covered them with flesh, and breathed into thy nostrils the breath of life, and then he gave thee unto me. Now truly Elohim who gave thee unto me, he has taken thee from me, and such then has befallen thee. And Jacob continued speaking like unto these words concerning Joseph, and he wept bitterly, and he fell to the ground, and he became still. And all the sons of Jacob, seeing their father's trouble, they repented of what they had done, and they also wept bitterly. And Yehudah rose up and lifted his father's head from the ground, and placed it upon his lap. And he wiped his father's tears from his cheeks. And Yehudah wept an exceedingly great weeping, whilst his father's head was reclining upon his lap, still as a stone. And the sons of Jacob saw their father's trouble, and they lifted up their voices and continued to weep. And Jacob was yet lying upon the ground, still as a stone. And all his sons and all his servants and his servants' children rose up and stood round him to comfort him, and he refused to be comforted. And the whole household of Jacob rose up and mourned a great mourning on account of Joseph and their father's trouble. And the intelligence reached Yishak, the son of Abraham, the father of Jacob, and he wept bitterly on account of Joseph, he and all his household. And he went from the place where he dwelt in Hebron, and his men with him, and he comforted Jacob his son, and he refused to be comforted. And after this, Jacob rose up from the ground, and his tears were running down his cheeks. And he said unto his sons, rise up and take your swords and your bows, and go forth into the field, and seek whether you can find my son's body, and bring it unto me, that I may bury it. Seek also, I pray you, among the beasts, and hunt them, and that which shall come the first before you seize, bring it unto me. Perhaps Yahuwah will this day pity my affliction, and prepare before you that which did tear my son into pieces, and bring it unto me, and I will avenge the cause of my son. And his sons did as their father had commanded them. And they rose up early in the morning, and each took his sword and his bow in his hand, and they went forth into the field to hunt the beasts. And Jacob was still crying aloud and weeping and walking to and fro in his house, smiting his hands together, saying, Joseph, my son, Joseph, my son. And the sons of Jacob went into the wilderness to seize the beast, and behold, a wolf came toward them, and they seized him, and they brought him unto their father. And they said unto him, this is the first we have found, and we have brought him unto thee, and thou didst command as thou didst command us, and thy son's body we could not find. And Jacob took the beast from the hands of his sons, and he cried out with a loud and weeping voice, holding the beast in his hand. And he spoke with a bitter heart unto the beast, why didst thou devour my son Joseph? And how didst thou have no fear of Elohim of the earth, or of my trouble for my son Joseph? And thou didst devour my son for naught, because he committed no violence, and he didst thereby render me culpable on his account. Therefore Elohim will require him that is persecuted. And Yahuwah opened the mouth of the beast in order to comfort Jacob with its words. And it answered Jacob and spoke these words unto him, as Elohim liveth, who created us in the earth, as and is thy soul liveth, my Adonai, I did not eat thy son, I did not see thy son, neither did I tear him to pieces. But from a distant land I also came to seek my son, who went from me this day, and I know not whether he be living or dead. And I came this day into the field to seek my son, and your sons found me, and seized me, and increased my grief, and have this day brought me before thee. And I have now spoken all my words to thee. And now therefore, O son of man, I am in thy hands, and do unto me this day as it may seem good in thy sight. But by the life of Elohim who created me, I did not see thy son, nor did I tear him into pieces. Neither has the flesh of man entered my mouth all the days of my life. And when Jacob heard the words of the beast, he was greatly astonished, and sent forth the beast from his hand, and she went her way. And Jacob was still crying aloud and weeping for Joseph day after day, and he mourned for his son many days. And the sons of Ishmael, who had brought Joseph from the Midianites, who had bought him from his brethren, went to Egypt with Joseph. And they came upon the borders of Egypt, and they came near unto Egypt. They met 4 men of the sons of Medan, the son of Abraham, who had gone forth from the land of Egypt on their journey. And the Ishmaelites said unto them, do you desire to purchase this slave from us? And they said, deliver him unto us. And they delivered Joseph over to them, and they beheld him, and he was a very comely youth. And they purchased him for 20 shekels. And the Ishmaelites continued their journey to Egypt, and the Midianim also returned that day to Egypt. And the Midianim said to each other, behold, we have heard that Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, seeketh a good servant who shall stand before him to attend him, and to make him overseer over his house, and all belonging to him. Now therefore come, let us sell him to him for what we may desire, if he be able to give unto us that which we shall require for him. And these Midianim went and came to the house of Potiphar, and they said unto him, We have heard that thou seekest a good servant to attend thee. Behold, we have a servant that will please thee. If thou canst give unto us that which we may desire, and we will sell him unto thee. And Potiphar said, Bring him before me, and I will see him. And if he pleases me, I will give unto you that which you may require for him. And the Midianim went and brought Joseph and placed him before Potiphar. And he saw him, and he pleased him exceedingly. And Potiphar said unto them, Tell me what you require for this youth. And they said, 400 pieces of silver we desire for him. And Potiphar said, I will give it you, if you bring me the record of his sale to you, and will tell me his history, for perhaps he may be stolen. For this youth is neither a slave, nor the son of a slave, but I observe in him the appearance of a goodly and handsome person. And the Midianim went and brought unto him the Ishmaelites who had sold him to them. And they told him, saying, He is a slave, and we sold him to them. And Potiphar heard the words of the Ishmaelites, and his giving the silver unto the Midianim. And the Midianim took the silver and went on their journey. And the Ishmaelites also returned home. And Potiphar took Joseph and brought him into his house, that he might serve him. And Joseph found favor in the sight of Potiphar, and he placed confidence in him, and he made him overseer over his house. And all that belonged to him he delivered over into his hand. And Yahuwah was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man. And Yahuwah blessed the house of Potiphar for the sake of Joseph. And Potiphar left all that he had in the hand of Joseph. And Joseph was one that caused things to come in and go out, and everything was regulated by his wish in the house of Potiphar. And Joseph was 18 years old, a youth with beautiful eyes and comely appearance, and like it unto him was not in the whole land of Egypt. At that time, whilst he was in his master's house, going in and out of the house and attending his master, Zalika, his master's wife, lifted up her eyes towards Joseph, and she looked at him, and behold, he was a youth comely and well favored, and she coveted his beauty in her heart, and her soul was fixed upon Joseph, and she enticed him day after day, and Zalika persuaded Joseph daily, but Joseph did not lift up his eyes to behold his master's wife. And Zalika said unto him, How goodly are thy appearance and form! Truly I have looked at all the slaves, and have not seen so beautiful a slave as thou art. And Joseph said unto her, Surely he who created me in my mother's womb created all mankind. And she said unto him, How beautiful are thine eyes, with which thou hast dazzled all the inhabitants of Egypt, men and women. And he said unto her, How beautiful they are whilst we are alive, but shouldest thou behold them in the grave, surely thou wouldst move away from them. And she said unto him, How beautiful and pleasing are thy words. Take now, I pray thee, the harp which is in thy house, and play with thy hands, and let us hear thy words. And he said unto her, How beautiful and pleasing are my words when I speak the praise of my Elohim and his glory. And she said unto him, How very beautiful is the hair of thy head. Behold, the golden comb which is in the house. Take it, I pray thee, and curl the hair of thy head. And he said unto her, How long wilt thou speak these words? Cease to utter these words to me, and rise and attend to thy domestic affairs. And she said unto him, There is no one in my house, and there is nothing to attend but to thy words and to thy wish. Yet notwithstanding all this, she could not bring Joseph unto her, neither did he place his eye upon her, but directed his eyes below to the ground. And Zuleika desired Joseph in her heart, and that he should lie with her. And at that time Joseph was sitting in the house doing his work. Zuleika came and sat before him, and she enticed him daily with her disclosure to lie with her, or ever to look at her. But Joseph would not hearken to her. And she said unto him, If thou wilt not do according to my words, I will chastise thee with the punishment of death, and put an iron yoke upon thee. And Joseph said unto her, Surely Elohim who created man, looseth the fetters of prisoners, and it is he who will deliver me from thy prison and from thy judgment. And when she could not prevail over him to persuade him, her soul being still fixed upon him, her desire threw her into a grievous sickness. And all the women of Egypt came to visit her, and they said unto her, Why art thou in this declining state? That thou that lackest nothing. Surely thy husband is a great and esteemed prince in the sight of the king. Shouldest thou lack anything of what thy heart desireth? And Zuleika answered them, saying, This day it shall be made known to you whence this disorder sprang in which you see me. And she commanded her maidservants to prepare food for all the women, and she made a banquet for them. And all the women ate in the house of Zuleika. And she gave them knives to peel the citrons to eat them. And she commanded that they should dress Joseph in costly garments, and that he should appear before them. And Joseph came before their eyes, and all the women looked on Joseph and could not take their eyes from off him. And they all cut their hands with the knives that they had in their hands. And all the citrons that were in their hands were filled with blood. And they knew not what they had done, but they continued to look at the beauty of Joseph, and did not turn their eyelids from him. And Zuleika saw what they had done, and she said unto them, What is this work that you have done? Behold, I have given you citrons to eat, but you have all cut your hands. And all the women saw their hands, and behold, they were full of blood. And their blood flowed down upon their garments. And they said unto her, This slave in your house has overcome us, and we could not turn our eyelids from his eyelids from him on account of his beauty. And she said unto them, Surely this happened to you in the moment that you looked at him, and you could not contain yourselves from him. How then can I refrain when he is constantly in my house, and I see him day after day going in and out of my house? How then can I keep from declining, or even from perishing on account of this? And they said unto her, The words are true. For who can see this beautiful form in the house and refrain from him? And is he not thy slave, and attendant in thy house? And why dost thou not tell him that which is in thy heart, and sufferest thy soul to perish through this matter? And she said unto them, I am daily endeavoring to persuade him, and he will not consent to my wishes. I promised him everything that is good, and yet I could not meet with no return from him. I am therefore in a declining state, as you see. And Zuleika became very ill on account of her desire toward Joseph, and she was desperately lovesick on account of him. And all the people of the house of Zuleika and her husband knew nothing of this matter. And Zuleika was ill on account of her love for Joseph, or love to Joseph. And all the people of her house asked her, saying, Why art thou ill and declining, and lackest nothing? And she said unto them, I know not this thing which is daily increasing upon me. And all the women of her and her friends came daily to see her, and they spoke with her. And she said unto them, This can only be through the love of Joseph. And they said unto her, Entice him, and seize him secretly. Perhaps he may hearken to thee, and put off this death from thee. And Zuleika became worse from her love to Joseph, and she continued to decline till she had scarce strength to stand. And on a certain day, Joseph was doing his master's work in the house, and Zuleika came secretly and fell suddenly upon him. And Joseph rose up against her, and he was more powerful than she, and he brought her down to the ground. And Zuleika wept on account of the desire of her heart toward him, and she supplicated him with weeping, and her tears flowed down her cheeks. And she spoke unto him in a voice of supplication, and in bitterness of soul, saying, Hast thou ever heard, seen, or known of so beautiful a woman as I am, or better than myself, who speak daily unto thee, fall into a decline through love for thee, confer all this honor upon thee, and still thou wilt not hearken to my voice? And if it be through fear, and thy master, lest he punish thee, as the king liveth, no harm shall come to thee from thy master through this thing. Now, therefore, pray, listen to me, and consent for the sake of the honor which I have conferred upon, and put off this death from me. And why should I die for thy sake? And she ceased to speak. Oh, shalom, Miss B. And Lamira Johnson. Nice, good. It's good to see you. Shabbat shalom, Auntie. And Joseph answered her, saying, Refrain from me, and leave this matter to my master. Behold, my master knoweth not what there is with me in the house. For all that belongeth to him he has delivered into my hand. And how shall I do these things in my master's house? For he hath also greatly honored me in his house, and he hath also made me overseer over his house. And he hath exalted me, and there is no one greater in this house than I am. And my master hath refrained nothing from me, excepting thee who art his wife. How then canst thou speak these words unto me? And how can I do this great evil and sin to Elohim and to thy husband? Now, therefore, refrain from me, and speak no more such words as these, for I will not hearken to thy words. But Zuleika would not hearken to Joseph when he spoke these words unto her. But she daily enticed him to listen to her. And it was after this that the brook of Egypt was filled above all its sides, and all the inhabitants of Egypt went forth, and also the king and princes went forth with timbrels and dances. For it was a great rejoicing in Egypt, and a holy day at the time of the inundation of the sea, Sihor. And they went there to rejoice all the day. And when the Egyptians went out to the river to rejoice, it was their custom. All the people of the house of Potiphar went with them, but Zuleika would not go with them, for she said, I am indisposed. And she remained alone in the house, and no other person was in her house, was with her in the house. And she rose up and ascended to her temple in the house, and she dressed herself in princely garments. And she placed upon her head precious stones of onyx stones, inlaid with silver and gold. And she beautified her face and skin with all sorts of women's purifying liquids. And she perfumed the temple and the house with acacia and frankincense. And she spread myrrh and aloes, and she afterwards sat in the entrance of the temple, in the passage of the house, through which Joseph passed to do his work. And behold, Joseph came from the field, and entered the house to do his master's work. And he came to the place through which he had to pass, and he saw the work of Zilkah, and he turned back, or Zuleika, and he turned back. And Zuleika saw Joseph turning back from her, and she called out to him, saying, Wait, aileth thee, Joseph? Come to thy work, and behold, I will make room for thee until thou shalt have passed to do to thy seat. And Joseph returned and came to the house, and passed from thence to the place of his seat. And he sat down to do his master's work, as usual. And behold, Zuleika came to him, and stood before him in princely garments. And she sat in the scent from her clothes was spread to a distance. And she hastened and caught hold of Joseph and his garments. And she said unto him, As the king liveth, if thou wilt not perform my request this day, my request, thou shalt die this day. And she hastened and stretched forth her other hand to draw a sword from beneath her garments. And she placed it upon Joseph's neck. And she said, Rise and perform my request. And if not, thou diest this day. And Joseph was afraid of her at doing this thing. And he rose up to flee from her. And she was seized the front of his garments. And in the terror of his flight, the garment which Zuleika seized was torn. And Joseph left the garment in the hand of Zuleika. And he fled and got out, for he was in fear. And when Zuleika saw that Joseph's garment was torn and that he had left it in her hand and had fled, she was afraid of her life, lest the report should spread concerning her. And she rose up and acted with cunning. And she put off the garments in which she was dressed. And she put on her other garments. And she took Joseph's garment and she laid it beside her. And she went and seated herself in the place where she had sat in her illness before the people of her house had gone out to the river. And she called a young lad who was then in the house, and she ordered him to call the people of the house to her. And when he saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, See what a Hebrew your master has brought to me in the house, for he came this day to lie with me. For when you had gone out, he came to the house, and seeing that there was no person in the house, he came unto me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. And I seized his garments and tore them and called out against him with a loud voice. And when I had lifted up my voice, he was afraid and afraid of his life, and left his garment before me and fled. And the people of her house spoke nothing. But their wrath was very much kindled against Joseph. And they went to his master and told him the words of his wife. And Potiphar came home and raged, and his wife cried out unto him, saying, What is this thing that thou hast done unto me in bringing a Hebrew servant into my house? For he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus he did unto me this day. And Potiphar heard the words of his wife, and he ordered Joseph to be punished with severe stripes. And they did so to him. And whilst they were smiting him, Joseph called out with a loud voice, and he lifted up his eyes to heaven, and he said, O Yahuwah Elohim, thou knowest that I am innocent of these things. And why shall I die this day through falsehood by the hand of these uncircumcised wicked men, whom thou knowest? And whilst Potiphar's men were beating Joseph, he continued to cry out and weep. And there was a child there 11 months old. And Yahuwah opened the mouth of the child, and he spake these words before Potiphar's men, who were smiting Joseph, saying, What do you want of this man? And why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speaketh falsely and uttereth lies. Thus was the transaction. And the child told him accurately all that happened, and all the words of Zuleika to Joseph, day after day, he declared unto them. And all the men heard the words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words. And the child ceased to speak and became still. Ooh, that'd be kind of creepy. And Potiphar was very much ashamed at the words of his son. And he commanded his men not to beat Joseph anymore. And the men ceased beating Joseph. And Potiphar took Joseph and ordered him to be brought to justice before the priests, who were judges belonging to the king, in order to judge him concerning this affair. And Potiphar and Joseph came before the priests who were in the king's judges. And he said unto them, Decide, I pray you, what judgment is due to a servant, for thus he has done. And the priest said unto Joseph, Why did thou do this thing to thy master? And Joseph answered them, saying, Not so, my Adonais. Thus was the matter. And Potiphar said unto Joseph, Surely I entrusted in all thy hands all that belonged to me, and I withheld nothing from thee but my wife. And how couldst thou do this evil? And Joseph answered, saying, Not so, my Adonai, as Yahuwah liveth, and as thy soul liveth, my Adonai, the word which thou didst hear from thy wife is untrue. For thus was the affair this day. And a year has elapsed to me since I have been in thy house. And hast thou seen any iniquity in me, or anything which might cause thee to demand my life? And the priest said unto Potiphar, Send, we pray thee, and let them bring before us Joseph's torn garment, and let us see the tear in it. And if it shall be that the tear is from the front, the tear is in the front of the garment, then his face must have been opposite to her, and she must have caught hold of him to come to her. And with deceit did thy wife do all that she has spoken. And they brought Joseph's garment before the priests, who were the judges. And they saw, and behold, the tear was in front of Joseph. And all the judging priests knew that she had pressed him. And they said, The judgment of death is not due to this slave, for he has done nothing. But his judgment is that he be placed in the prison house on account of the report, which through him has gone forth against thy wife. That's messed up, family. I mean, how are you going to find a man innocent of doing wrong, but you're still going to put him in jail just because there's an allegation against your wife? Like, hold on. You the prince. You the top. You the one of the top people. But since this allegation could stain your household against your wife, we got to put him in jail. We got to at least lock him up. We can't have this getting out that your wife was foul. You see, that's even more foul to me.
It is.
Sure enough. And Potiphar heard their words, and he placed him in the prison house, and place where the king's prisoners are confined. And Joseph was in the house of confinement 12 years. And notwithstanding this, his master's wife did not turn from him, and she did not cease from speaking to him day after day to hearken to her. And at the end of 3 months, Zuleika continued going to Joseph to the house of confinement day by day, and she enticed him to hearken to her. And Zuleika said unto Joseph, How long wilt thou remain in this house? But hearken now to my voice, and I will bring thee out of this house. And Joseph answered her, saying, It is better for me to remain in this house than to hearken to thy words, to sin against Elohim. And she said unto him, If thou wilt not perform my wish, I will pluck out thine eyes, add fetters to thy feet, and I will deliver thee into the hands of them whom thou didst not know before. And Joseph answered her and said, Behold, the Elohim of the earth is able to deliver me from all that thou canst do unto me. For he opened the eyes of the blind, and looseth those that are bound, and preserveth all strangers who are unacquainted with the land. And when Zuleika was unable to persuade Joseph to hearken to her, she left off going to entice him. And Joseph was still confined in the house of confinement. And Jacob, the father of Joseph, and all his brethren who were in the land of Canaan, still mourned and wept in those days on account of Joseph. For Jacob refused to be comforted for his son Joseph. And Jacob cried aloud and wept and mourned all those days. And it was at that time in that year, which is the year of Joseph's going down to Egypt, after his brothers had sold him, that Reuben, the son of Jacob, went to Timnah and took unto him for a wife Ilaram. Yeah, it looks like Ilaram. Yeah, Ilaram, the daughter of Avi, the Canaanite, and he came to her. And Ilaram, the wife of Reuben, conceived and bare him Hannah, Palu, Hetzron, Carmi, 4 sons. And Simeon, his brother, took his sister Dinah for a wife. And she bare unto him Memuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yachin, Zohar, 5 sons. And he afterward came to Banah, the Canaanite woman, the same as Banah, whom Simeon took captive from the city of Shechem, or Shechem. And Banah was before Dinah, and attended upon her. And Simeon came to her, and she bare unto him Saul. And Yehuda went at that time to Adullam, and he came to a man of Adullam, and his name was Shara, yeah. And Yehuda saw there the daughter of a man from Canaan. Her name was Aliat, and the daughter of Shua. And he took her and came to her. And Aliath bare unto Yehuda Onan, and Shiloh, 3 sons. And Levi and Issachar went to the land of the east, and they took unto themselves for wives. And the daughters of Jobab, the son of Yoktan, the son of Eber, and Jobab, the son of Yoktan, had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Adina, and the name of the younger was Arita. And Levi took Adina, and Issachar took Arita. And they came to the land of Canaan, in their father's house. And Adina bare unto Levi Gershon, Kehath, and Merari, 3 sons. And Arita bare unto Issachar Tola, Puva, and Job, and Shamron, 4 sons. And Dan went to the land of Moab and took for a wife Aphaleth, and the daughter of Hamudan, and the Hamudan, the Moabite. And he brought her to the land of Canaan. And Aphaleth was barren, and she had no offspring. And Elohim afterward remembered Aphaleth, and the wife of Dan, and she conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Hushim. And Gad and Naphtali went to Haran, and took from thence the daughters of Amoram, the son of Uz, and the son of Nahor, for wives. And these are the names of the daughters of Amoram. The daughter of the eldest was Miramah, and the name of the younger was Uzit. And Naphtali took Miramah, and Gad took Uzit, and brought them to the land of Canaan, to their father's house. And Miramah bare unto Naphtali Yachziel, Gunai, Jasher, and Shalem. 4 sons. And Uzith bare unto Gad Zephion, Haggai, Shunai, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, Arali, 7 sons. And Asher went forth and took Adon, the daughter of Aphlah, the son of Hadad, the son of Ishmael, for a wife. And he brought her to the land of Canaan. And Adon, the wife of Asher, died in those days. She had no offspring. And it was after the death of Adon that Asher went to the other side of the river and took for a wife Hadurah, the daughter of Abamiel, the son of Eber, the son of Shem. And the young woman was of a comely appearance, and a woman of sense. And she had been the wife of Machiel, the son of Elam, the son of Shem. And Hadurah bare a daughter unto Machiel, and he called her name Sirach. And Malchiel died after this, and Hadurah went and remained in her father's house. And after the death of the wife of Asher, he went and took Hadurah for a wife. and brought her to the land of Canaan. And Sarah, her daughter, he also brought with them, and she was 3 years old. And the damsel was brought up in Jacob's house. And the damsel was of a comely appearance, and she went in the sanctified ways of the children of Jacob. She lacked nothing, and Yahuwah gave her wisdom and understanding. And Hadarah, the wife of Asher, conceived and bare unto him Yimnah, Yishva, Yishvi, and Beriah, 4 sons. And Zebulun went to Midian and took for a wife Merisha, the daughter of Molad, the son of Abida, the son of Midian, and brought her to the land of Canaan. And Marusha, bear unto Zebulun Sered, Elon, and Yachliel, 3 sons. And Jacob sent to Aram the son of Zobah, the son of Terah, and he took for his son Benjamin Michaliah, the daughter of Aram, and she came to the land of Canaan to the house of Jacob. And Benjamin was 10 years old when he took Michaliah, the daughter of Aram, for a wife. And Michaliah conceived and bare unto Benjamin Bela, Beor, Ashbel, Gera, and Naaman, 5 sons. And Benjamin went afterward and took for a wife Arabath, the daughter of Shamron, the son of Abraham. And in addition to his first wife, and he was 80 years old, and Arabath bare unto Benjamin Aki, Vash, Mupim, Shupim, and Ord, 5 sons. And in those days Yehuda went to the house of Shem and took Tamar, the daughter of Elam, the son of Shem, for a wife for his firstborn And came to his wife Tamar, and she became his wife. And when he came to her, he outwardly destroyed his seed, and his work was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah slew him. And after the death of Yehuda's firstborn, Yehuda said to Onan, "Go to thy brother's wife and marry her as the next of kin, and raise up seed to thy brother." And Onan took Tamar for a wife, and he came to her. And Onan did like unto the work of his brother, and his work was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and he slew him also. And when Onan died, Yehuda said unto Tamar, "Remain in thy father's house until my son Shiloh shall have grown up." And Yehuda did no more delight in Tamar, and he did no more delight in Tamar, to give her unto Shiloh, for he said, "Peradventure he will also die like his brothers." And Tamar rose up and went and remained in her father's house. And Tamar was in her father's house for some time. And at the revolution of the year, Aliath, the wife of Yehuda, died, and Yehuda was comforted for his wife. And after the death of Aliath, Yehuda went up with his friend Hirah to Timnah to shear the sheep. And Tamar heard that Yehuda had gone up to Timnah to shear the sheep, and that Shiloh was grown up, and Yehuda did not delight in her. And Tamar rose up and put off the garments of her widowhood, and she put a veil upon her, and she entirely covered herself, and she went and sat in the public thoroughfare, and which is upon the road to Timnah. And Yehuda passed and saw her, and took her, and he came to her, and she conceived by him. And at that time of being delivered, behold, there were twins in her womb. And he called the name of the first Perez, and the name of the second Zerah. And in those days Joseph was still confined in the prison house of the land of Egypt. At that time, the attendants of Pharaoh were standing before him, the chief of the butlers and the chief of the bakers, which belonged to the king of Egypt. And the butler took wine and placed it before the king to drink, and the baker placed bread before the king to eat. And the king drank of the wine and ate of the bread, and his servants and ministers that ate the king at the king's table. And whilst they were eating and drinking, the butler and the baker remained there. And Pharaoh's ministers found many flies in the wine which the butler had brought, and stones of nitre were found in the baker's bread. And the captain of the guard placed Joseph as an attendant on Pharaoh's officers, and Pharaoh's officers were in confinement 1 year. At the end of the year, they both dreamed dreams in one night in the place of confinement where they were. In the morning, Joseph came to them to attend upon them as usual. And he saw them, and behold, their countenances were dejected and sad. And Joseph asked them, Why are your countenances sad and dejected this day? And they said unto him, We dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. And Joseph said unto them, Relate, I pray you, your dream unto me, and Elohim shall give you an answer of peace as you desire. Let me get a drink right quick, family. Thank you. And the butler related his dream unto Joseph, and he said, I saw in my dream, and behold, a large vine was before me, and upon that vine I saw 3 branches, and the vine speedily blossomed and reached a great height, and its clusters were ripened and became grapes. And I took the grapes and pressed them in a cup, and placed it in Pharaoh's hand, and he drank it. And Joseph said unto him, The 3 branches that were upon the vine are 3 days. Yet within 3 days the king will order thee to be brought out, and he will restore thee to thy office. And thou shalt give the king his wine to drink as the first when thou wast his butler. But let me find favor in thy sight, that thou shalt remember me to Pharaoh when it will be well with thee, and do a kindness unto me, and get me brought forth from this prison. For I was stolen away from the land of Canaan, and I was sold for a slave in this place. And also, that which was told to thee concerning my master's wife is false, for they placed me in this dungeon for naught. And the butler answered Joseph, saying, If the king deal well with me, as at first, as thou last interpreted to me, I will do all that thou desirest, and get thee brought out of this dungeon. And the baker, seeing that Joseph had accurately interpreted the butler's dream, also approached and related the whole of his dream to Joseph. And he said unto him, In my dream I saw, and behold, 3 white baskets upon my head. And I looked, and behold, there were in the uppermost basket all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh. And behold, the birds were eating them from off my head. And Joseph said unto him, The 3 baskets which thou didst see are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh will take off thy head, and hang thee upon a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from off thee, as thou sawest in thy dream. And in those days the queen was about to be delivered, and upon that day she bare a son unto the king of Egypt. And they proclaimed that the king had gotten his firstborn son, and all the people of Egypt, together with the officers and servants of Pharaoh, rejoiced greatly. And upon the 3rd day of his birth, Pharaoh made a feast for his officers and servants, for the host of the land of Zoar and the land of Egypt. And all the people of Egypt and the servants of Pharaoh came to eat and drink with the king at the feast of his son, and to rejoice at the king's rejoicing. And all the officers of the king and his servants were rejoicing at that time for 8 days at the feast, And they made merry with all sorts of musical instruments, with timbrels and with dances in the king's house for 8 days. And the butler, to whom Joseph had interpreted his dream, forgot Joseph. He did not mention him to the king as he had promised. And this thing was from Yahuwah, in order to punish Joseph because he had trusted in man. And Joseph remained after this, in the prison house 2 years, until he had completed 12 years. And Yishak, the son of Abraham, was still living in those days in the land of Canaan. And he was very aged, 180 years old. And Esau, his son, the brother of Jacob, was in the land of Edom. And he and his sons had possessions in it amongst the children of Seir. And Esau heard that his father's time was drawing nigh to die. And he and his sons and household came unto the land of Canaan, unto his father's house. And Jacob and his sons went forth from their place where they dwelt in Hebron. And they all came to their father Yishak, and they found Esau and his sons in the tent. And Jacob and his sons sat before his father Yishak. And Jacob was still mourning for his son Joseph. And Yishak said unto Jacob, Bring me hither thy sons, and I will bless them. And Jacob brought his 11 children before his father Yishak. And Yishak placed his hands upon all the sons of Jacob, and he took hold of them and embraced them and kissed them one by one. And Yishak blessed them on that day. And he said unto them, May the Elohim of your fathers bless you and increase your seed like the stars of heaven for number. And Yishak also blessed the sons of Esau, saying, May Elohim cause you to be a dread and a terror to all that who will behold you, and to all your enemies. And Yishak called Jacob and his sons, and they all came and sat before Yishak. And Yishak said unto Jacob, Yahuwah Elohim of the whole earth said unto me, Unto thy seed will I give this land for an inheritance, if thy children keep my statutes and my ways. And I will perform unto them the oath of which I swore unto thy father Abraham. Now therefore, my son, teach thy children and thy children's children to fear Yahuwah, and to go into the good way which will please Yahuwah thy Elohim. For if you keep the ways of Yahuwah and his statutes, Yahuwah will also keep unto you his covenant with Abraham, and will do well with you and your seed all the days. And when Yishak had finished commanding Jacob and his children, he gave up the ghost, and he died, and was gathered unto his people. And Jacob and Esau fell upon the face of their father Yishak, and they wept. And Yishak was 180 years old when he died in the land of Canaan. And in Hebron, his sons carried him to the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth for possession of a burial. And all the kings of the land of Canaan went with Jacob and Esau to bury Yishak. And all the kings of Canaan showed Yishak great honor at his death. And the sons of Jacob and all the sons of Esau went barefooted round about, walking and lamenting until they reached Kereth Arba. And Jacob and Esau buried their father Yishak in the cave of Machpelah, which is in Kereth Arba in Hebron. And they buried him with very great honor, as the funeral of kings. And Jacob and his sons, and Esau and his sons, and all the kings of Canaan made a great and heavy mourning, and they buried him and mourned for him many days. And at the death of Yishak, he left his cattle and his possessions and all belonging to him to his sons. And Esau said unto Jacob, Behold, I pray thee, all that our father has left we will divide in it 2 parts, and I will have the choice. And Jacob said, We will do so. And Jacob took all that Yishak had left in the land of Canaan, and the cattle and the property, and he placed them in 2 parts before Esau and his sons. And he said unto Esau, Behold, all that this is before thee, choose thou unto thyself the half which thou wilt take. And Jacob said unto Esau, Hear thou, I pray thee, what I will speak unto thee, saying, Yahuwah Elohim of heaven and earth spoke unto our fathers, Abraham and Yishak, saying, Unto thy seed will I give thee this land for an inheritance forever. Now therefore, all that our father has left is before thee, and behold, all the land is before thee. Choose thou from them what thou desirest, and if thou desirest the whole land, take it for thee and thy children forever, and I will take this riches. And if thou desirest the riches, take it unto thee, and I will take this land for me and for my children to inherit it forever. And Nabaioth, the son of Ishmael, was then in the land with his children, and Esau went on that day and consulted with him, saying, Thus has Jacob spoken unto me, and thus has he answered me. Now give thy advice, and we will hear. And Nabaioth said, What is this that Jacob hath spoken unto thee? Behold, all the children of Canaan are dwelling securely in the land. And Jacob saith he will inherit it with his seed all the days. Go now, therefore, and take all thy father's riches, and leave Jacob thy brother in the land, as he has spoken. And Esau rose up and returned to Jacob, and did all that Nabaioth the son of Ishmael had advised. And Esau took all the riches that Yishak had left, the souls, the beasts, the cattle, and the property, and all the riches, and he gave nothing to his brother Jacob. And Jacob took all the land of Canaan, from the brook of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, and he took it for an everlasting possession, and for his children and for his seed after him forever. And Jacob also took from his brother Esau the cave of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, which Abraham had bought from Ephron for possession of a burial place for him and his seed forever. And Jacob wrote all these things in the book of purchase, and he signed it, and he testified all this with 4 faithful witnesses. And these are the words which Jacob wrote in the book, saying, The land of Canaan, and all the cities of the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, all the 7 nations from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, and the city of Hebron, Kereth Arba, and the cave which is in it, the whole did Jacob buy from his brother Esau for value, for a possession, and for an inheritance for his seed after him forever. And Jacob took the book of the purchase, and the signature, and the command, and the statutes, and the revealed book, and he placed them in an earthen vessel, in order that they should remain for a long time. And he delivered them into the hands of his children. Esau took all that his father had left him after his death from his brother Jacob, and he took all the property, from man and beast, camel and ass, ox and lamb, silver and gold, stones and bdellium, and all the riches which had belonged to Yishak the son of Abraham. There was nothing left which Esau did not take unto himself from all that Yishak had left after his death. And Esau took all this, and he and his children went home to the land of Seir, the Horite, away from his brother Jacob and his children. And Esau had possessions amongst the children of Seir. And Esau returned not to the land of Canaan from that day forward. And the whole land of Canaan became an inheritance to the children of Yasharal, for an everlasting inheritance. And Esau, with all his children, inherited the mountain of Seir. And in those days after the death of Yishak, Yahuwah commanded and caused a famine upon the whole earth. At that time, Pharaoh king of Egypt was sitting upon his throne in the land of Egypt, and lay in his bed and dreamed dreams. And Pharaoh saw in his dream that he was standing by the side of the river of Egypt. And whilst he was standing, he saw, and behold, 7 fat-fleshed and well-favored kine came up out of the river, and 7 other kine, lean fish and ill-favored, came up after them, and the 7 ill-favored ones swallowed up the well-favored ones, and still their appearance was ill as at first. And he awoke, and he slept again, and he dreamed a second time, and he saw, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good, and 7 thin ears, blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them, and the thin ears swallowed up the full ones. And Pharaoh awoke out of his dream. And in the morning the king remembered his dreams, and his spirit was sadly troubled on account of his dreams. And the king hastened and sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, the wise men, and they came and stood before Pharaoh. As the king said unto them, I have dreamed dreams, and there is none to interpret them. And they said unto the king, relate thy dreams, and thy servants to thy servants, and let us hear them. And the king related his dreams to them, and they all answered and said with one voice to the king, may the king live forever. And this is the interpretation of thy dreams. And the 7 good kine, which thou didst see, denote 7 daughters that will be born unto thee in the latter days. And the 7 kind daughters, which thou sawest come up after them and swallowed them up, are for a sign that the daughters which will be born unto thee will all die in the lifetime of the king. And that which thou didst see in the second dream of 7 full good ears of corn coming up upon one stalk, this is their interpretation, that thou wilt build unto thyself in the latter days 7 cities throughout the land of Egypt. And that which thou sawest in the 7 blasted ears of corn springing up after them and swallowing them, whilst thou didst behold them with thine eyes, is for a sign that the cities which thou wilt build will all be destroyed in the latter days, in the lifetime of the king. And when they spoke these words, the king did not incline his ear to their words, neither did he fix his heart upon them. For the king knew in his wisdom that they did not give a proper interpretation of the dreams. And when they had finished speaking before the king answered them, saying, what is this thing that you have spoken unto me? Surely you have uttered falsehood and spoken lies. Therefore now give the proper interpretation of my dreams, that thou may not die. And the king commanded after this, and he sent and called again for other wise men. And they came and stood before the king, and the king related his dreams to them. And they all answered him according to the first interpretation. And the king's anger was kindled, and he was very wroth. And the king said unto them, surely you speak lies and utter falsehood in what you have said. And the king commanded that the proclamation should be issued throughout the land of Egypt, saying, it is resolved by the king and his great men that any wise man who knoweth and understandeth the interpretation of dreams and will not come this day before the king shall die. And the man that will declare unto the king the proper interpretation of his dreams, there shall be given unto him all that he will require from the king. And all the wise men of the land of Egypt came before the king, together with all the magicians and sorcerers that were in Egypt, and in Goshen, and in Ramses, and in Tapanax, and Zoar, and all the places on the borders of Egypt. And they all stood before the king. And all the nobles, and all the princes, and all the attendants, and the attendants belonging to the king came together from all the cities of Egypt. And they all sat before the king, and the king related his dream before the wise men and the princes. And all that sat before the king were astonished at the vision. And all the wise men who were before the king were greatly divided and their interpretation of his dreams. Some of them interpreted them to the king, saying, the 7 good kind are 7 kings, who from the king's issue will be raised over Egypt. And the 7 bad kind are 7 princes who will stand up against them in the latter days and will destroy them. And the 7 ears of corn are the 7 great princes belonging to Egypt, who will fall in the hands of the 7 less powerful princes of their enemies in the wars of our Lord, or Adonai, the king. And some of them interpreted to the king in this manner, saying, the 7 good kind are the strong cities of Egypt, and the 7 bad kind are the 7 nations of the land of Canaan, who will come against the 7 cities of Egypt in the latter days and destroy them. And that which thou sawest in the second dream of 7 good and bad ears of corn is a sign that the government of Egypt will again return to thy seed as at first. And in his reign, the people of the city of Egypt, the cities of Egypt, will turn against the 7 cities of Canaan, who are stronger than they are, and will destroy them. And the government of Egypt will return to thy seed. And some of them said unto the king, this is the interpretation of thy dreams. The 7 good kind are the 7 queens, whom thou wilt take for wives in the later days, or in the latter days. And the 7 bad kind denote that those women will all die in the lifetime of the king. And the 7 good and bad ears of corn which thou didst see is the second dream, are 14 children. And it will be in the latter days that they will stand up and fight amongst themselves, and 7 of them will smite the 7 that are more powerful. Oh boy. And some of them said these words unto the king, the 7 good kind denote the 7 children will be born to thee, and they will slay 7 of thy children's children in the latter days. And the 7 good ears of corn, which thou didst see in the second dream, are those princes against whom 7 other less powerful princes will fight and destroy them in the latter days, and avenge thy children's cause, and the government will again return to thy seed. And the king heard all the words of the wise men of Egypt and their interpretation of his dreams, and none of them pleased the king. And the king knew in his wisdom that they did not altogether speak correctly in all these words. For this was from Yahuwah to frustrate the words of the wise men of Egypt, in order that Joseph might go forth from the house of confinement, in order that he should become great in Egypt. And the king saw that none amongst all the wise men and magicians of Egypt spoke correctly to him, and the king's wrath was kindled, and his anger burned within him. And the king commanded that all the wise men and magicians should go out from before him, and they all went out from before the king with shame and disgrace. And the king commanded that a proclamation be sent throughout Egypt to slay all the magicians that were in Egypt, and not one of them should be suffered to live. And the captains of the guard belonging to the king rose up, and each man drew his sword, and they began to smite the magicians of Egypt and the wise men. And after this, Merid, chief butler of the king, came and bowed down before the king and sat before him. And the butler said unto the king, may the king live forever, and his government be exalted in the land. Thou wast angry with thy servant in those days, now 2 years past, and didst place me in the ward. And I was for some time in the ward, and I and the chief of the bakers. And there was with us a Hebrew servant belonging to the captain of the guard, and his name was Joseph. And for his master had been angry with him and placed him in the house of confinement, and he attended us there. And in some time after, when we were in the ward, we dreamed dreams And one night, I and the chief of bakers, we dreamed, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And we came in the morning and told them to that servant, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream. And did he correctly interpret? And it came to pass as he interpreted to us. So was the event. There fell not to the ground any of his words. And now, therefore, my Adonai and King, do not slay the people of Egypt for naught. Behold, that slave is still confined in the house by thy captain, or by the captain of the guard, his master, and in the house of confinement. But if it pleaseth the king to let him send for him, that he may come before thee, and he will make known to thee the correct interpretation of the dream which thou didst dream. And the king heard the words of the chief butler, and the king ordered that the wise men of Egypt should not be slain. And the king ordered his servants to bring Joseph before him. And the king said unto them, Go to him, and do not terrify him, lest he be confused and will not know to speak properly. And the servants of the king went to Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And the king's servants shaved him, and he changed his prison garment, and he came before the king. And the king was sitting upon his royal throne in a princely dress, girt around with golden ephod, and the fine gold which upon it sparkled, and the carbuncle, and the ruby, and the emerald, together with all the precious stones that were upon the king's head, dazzled the eye. And Joseph wondered greatly at the king. And the throne upon which the king sat was covered with gold and silver, and with onyx stones, and it had 70 steps. And it was their custom throughout the land of Egypt that every man who came to speak to the king, if he was a prince or one that was estimable in the sight of the king, he ascended to the king's throne as far as 30 steps, as the 31st step. And the king would descend to the 36th step to speak with him. And if he was one of the common people, he ascended to the 3rd step, and the king would descend to the 4th and speak to him. And their custom was moreover that any man who understood to speak all the 70 languages, he ascended to the 70 steps and went up and spoke till he reached the king. And any man who could not complete the 70, he ascended as many steps as the languages which he knew to speak in. And the king, and it was customary in those days in Egypt that not one should reign over them, but who understood to speak the 70 languages. And when Joseph came before the king, he bowed down to the ground before the king, and he ascended to the 3rd step. And the king sat upon the 4th step and spoke to Joseph. And the king said unto Joseph, I dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter to interpret it properly. And I commanded this day that all the magicians of Egypt and the wise men thereof should come before me. And I related my dream to them, and no one has properly interpreted them to me. And after this, I this day heard concerning thee, that thou art a wise man, and canst correctly interpret every dream that thou hearest. And Joseph answered the Pharaoh, saying, Let Pharaoh relate his dream that he dreamed. Surely interpretations belong to Elohim. And Pharaoh related his dream to Joseph, the dream of the kine and the dream of the ears of corn. And the king left off speaking. And Joseph was then clothed with the spirit of Elohim before the king, and he knew all the things that would befall the king from that day forward, and he knew the proper interpretation of the king's dream, and he spoke before the king. And Joseph found favor in the sight of the king, and the king inclined his ears and his heart, and he heard all the words of Joseph. And Joseph said unto the king, do not imagine that they are two dreams, for it is only one dream. For that which Elohim has chosen to do throughout the land, he has shown to the king in his dream. And this is the proper interpretation of thy dream. The 7 good kind and ears of corn are 7 years, and the 7 bad kind and ears of corn are also 7 years. It is one dream. Behold, the 7 years that are coming, there will be a great plenty throughout the land. And after that, the 7 years of famine will follow them, and a very grievous famine. And all the plenty will be forgotten from the land, and the famine will consume the inhabitants of the land. The king dreamed one dream, and the dream was therefore repeated unto Pharaoh, because the thing is established by Elohim, and Elohim will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore I will give thee counsel, and deliver thy soul and the souls of the inhabitants of the land from the evil of the famine, that thou seek throughout thy kingdom for a man very discreet and wise, and who knoweth all the affairs of government, and appoint him to superintend over the land of Egypt. And let the man whom thou placest over Egypt appoint officers under him, that they gather in all the food of the good years that are coming, and let them lay up corn and deposit it in thy appointed stores, and let them keep that food for the 7 years of famine, that it may be found for thee and thy people and thy whole land, and that thou and thy land be not cut off by the famine. And let all the inhabitants of the land also be ordered that they gather in every man the produce of his field, and all sorts of food during the 7 good years, that they place it in their stores, that it may be found for them in the days of the famine, and that they may live upon it. This is the proper interpretation of thy dream, and this is the counsel given to save thy soul and the souls of all thy subjects. And the king answered and said unto Joseph, who saith and who knoweth that thy words are correct? And he said unto the king, this shall be a sign for 3 respecting all my words, that they are true, and that my advice is good for thee. Behold, thy wife sitteth this day upon the stool of delivery, and she will bear thee a son, and thou wilt rejoice with him when thy child shall have gone forth from his mother's womb. Thy firstborn son that has been born these 2 years back shall die, and thou wilt be comforted in the child that will be born unto thee this day. And Joseph finished speaking these words to the king, and he bowed down to the king, and he went out. And when Joseph had gone out from the king's presence, those signs which Joseph had spoken unto the king came to pass on that day. And the queen bare a son on that day, and the king heard the glad tidings about his son, and he rejoiced. And when the reporter had gone forth from the king's presence, the king's servants found the firstborn son of the king fallen dead upon the ground. And there was a great lamentation and noise in the king's house, and the king heard it. And he said, what is this? What is the noise and lamentation that I've heard in the house? And they told the king that his firstborn son had died. Then the king knew that all Joseph's words that he had spoken were correct. And the king was consoled for his son by the child that was born to him on that day, as Joseph had spoken. After these things, the king sent and assembled all his officers and servants, and all the princes and nobles belonging to the king, and they all came before the king. And the king said unto them, behold, you have seen and heard all the words of this Hebrew man, and all the signs which he declared would come to pass, and not any of his words have fallen to the ground. You know that he has given a proper interpretation of the dream, and it will surely come to pass, Now, therefore, take counsel and know that you will do, and how the land will be delivered from the famine. Seek now and see whether the light can be found, in whose heart there is wisdom and knowledge, and I will appoint him over the land. For you have heard you've heard what the Hebrew man has advised concerning this, to save the land therewith from famine, or from the famine. And I know that the land will not be delivered from the famine, but with the advice of the Hebrew man, him that advised me. And they all answered the king and said, the counsel which the Hebrew has given concerning this is good. Now therefore, O Adonai and king, behold, the whole land is in thy hand. Do that which seemeth good in thy sight. Him whom thou chooses, and him and whom thou in thy wisdom knowest to be wise and capable of delivering the land with his wisdom, him shall the king appoint to be under him over the land. And the king said to all the officers, I have thought that since Elohim has made known to the Hebrew man all that he has spoken, there was none so discreet and wise in the whole land as he is. If it has seemed good in your sight, I will place him over the land, for he will save the land with his wisdom. And all the officers answered the king and said, but surely it is written in the laws of Egypt, and it should not be violated, that no man shall reign over Egypt, nor be second to the king, but one who has knowledge in all the languages of the sons of men. Now therefore, Adonai and king, behold, this Hebrew man can only speak the Hebrew language. And how then can he be over us, the second under government, a man who not even knoweth our language? Now we pray thee, send for him, and let him come before thee, and prove him in all things, and do as thou see fit. And the king said, it shall be done tomorrow, and the thing that you have spoken is good. And all the officers came on that day before the king. And on that night, Yahuwah sent one of his ministering angels, and he came into the land of Egypt unto Joseph. And the angel of Yahuwah stood over Joseph, and behold, Joseph was lying in the bed at night in his master's house, in the dungeon, for his master had put him back into the dungeon on account of his wife. And the angel roused him from his sleep, and Joseph rose up and stood upon his legs. And behold, the angel of Yahuwah was standing opposite to him. And the angel of Yahuwah spoke with Joseph, and he taught him all the languages of man in that night. And he called his name Jehoshaphat. And the angel of Yahuwah went from him, and Jehoshaphat returned and laid upon his bed. And Joseph was astonished at the vision which he saw. And it came to pass in the morning that the king sent for all his officers and servants, and they all came and sat before the king. And the king ordered Joseph to be brought. And the king's servants went and brought Joseph before Pharaoh. And the king came forth and ascended the steps of the throne. And Joseph spoke unto the king in all languages. And Joseph went up to him and spoke unto the king until he arrived before the king in the 70th step. And he sat before the king. Excuse me. And the king greatly rejoiced on account of Joseph. And all the king's officers rejoiced greatly with the king when they heard all the words of Joseph. And the thing seemed good in the sight of the king and the officers to appoint Joseph to be the second to the king over the whole land of Egypt. And the king spoke to Joseph, saying, and now thou didst give me counsel to appoint a wise man over the land of Egypt, in order with his wisdom to save the land from the famine. Now therefore, since Elohim has made all this known to thee, And all the words which thou hast spoken, there was not throughout the land a discreet and wise man like unto thee. Excuse me. And thy name shall no more be called Yehusif, but Zaphnath, Paaniah shall be thy name. And thou shalt be second to me. And according to thy word shall be all the affairs of my government. And at that time, and at that word shall my people go out and come in. As from under thy hand shall my servants and officers receive their salary, which is given to them monthly. To thee shall all the people of the land bow down. Only in my throne will I be greater than thou. And the king took off his ring from his hand, and he put it upon the hand of Joseph. And the king dressed Joseph in a princely garment, and he put a golden crown upon his head, and he put a golden chain upon his neck. And the king commanded his servants, and they made him ride in the second chariot belonging to the king that went opposite the king's chariot. And he caused him to ride upon a great and strong horse from the king's horses, and to be conducted throughout the streets of the land of Egypt. And the king commanded that those that played upon timbrels, harps, and other musical instruments should go forth with Joseph. 1,000 timbrels, 1,000 mekaloth, and 1,000 nebelim went after him, and 5,000 men with drawn swords glittering in their hands. And they went marching and playing before Joseph. And 20,000 of the great men of the king, girt with girdles of skin covered with gold, marched at the right of Joseph, and 20,000 at his left. And all the women and damsels went upon the roofs, or stood in the streets, playing and rejoicing at Joseph, and gazed at the appearance of Joseph and his beauty. And the king's people went before him and behind him, perfuming the road with frankincense and with cassia, and with all sorts of fine perfume, and scattered myrrh and aloes along the road. And 20 men proclaimed these words before him throughout the land in a loud voice. Do you see this man whom the king has chosen to be his second? All the affairs of the government shall be regulated by him, and he that transgresses his orders, or that does not bow down before him to the ground, shall die, for he rebels against the king and his second. And when the heralds had ceased proclaiming, all the people of Egypt bowed down to the ground before Joseph, and said, May the king live, also may his second live. And all the inhabitants of Egypt bowed down along the road. And when the heralds approached them, they bowed down, and they rejoiced with all sorts of timbrels, Mechal and Nebal, before Joseph. And Joseph upon his horse lifted up his eyes to heaven, and he called out and said, He raiseth the poor man from the dust. He lifteth up the needy from the dunghill. O Yahuwah of hosts, Yahuwah Sabaoth, happy is the man who trusteth in thee. And Joseph passed throughout the land of Egypt with Pharaoh's servants and officers, and they showed him the whole land of Egypt and all the king's treasures. And Joseph returned and came on that day before Pharaoh, and the king gave unto Joseph a possession in the land of Egypt, a possession of fields and vineyards. And the king gave unto Joseph 3,000 talents of silver and 1,000 talents of gold, and onyx stones and bdellium, and many gifts. And on the next day, the king commanded all the people of Egypt to bring unto Joseph offerings and gifts, and that he that violated the command of the king should die. And they made a high place in the street of the city, and they spread out garments, there, and whoever brought anything to Joseph put it in the high place. And all the people of Egypt cast something into the high place. One man golden earring, and another rings and earrings, and different vessels of gold and silver work, and onyx stones and bdellium did he cast upon the high place, and everyone gave something of what he possessed. And Joseph took all these and placed them in his treasures, in his treasuries. And all the officers and nobles belonging to the king exalted Joseph, and they gave him many gifts, seeing that the king had chosen him to be his second. And the king sent to Potipharah, the son of Aharam, priest of On, and he took his younger daughter, Osnath, and gave her unto Joseph for a wife. And the damsel was very comely, a virgin, one whom man had not known. And Joseph took her for a wife. And the king said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and beside thee, none shall dare to lift up his hand or his foot to regulate my people throughout the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. And Joseph went out from before the king, and he became the king second of Egypt. And the king gave Joseph 100 servants to attend him in his house. And Joseph also sent and purchased many servants, and they remained in the house of Joseph. And Joseph then built for himself a very magnificent house, like unto the houses of kings, before the court of the king's palace. And he made in the house a large temple, very elegant in appearance, and convenient for his residence. 3 years was Joseph in erecting his house. And Joseph made unto himself a very elegant throne of abundance of gold and silver, and he covered it with onyx stones and bdellium. And he made upon it the likeness of the whole land of Egypt, and the likeness of the river of Egypt that watereth the whole land of Egypt. And Joseph sat securely upon his throne and in his house, and Yahuwah increased Joseph's wisdom. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and Pharaoh's servants and his princes loved Joseph exceedingly, for this thing was from Yahuwah to Joseph. And Joseph had an army that made war, going out in hosts and troops to the number of 40,600 men, capable of bearing arms to assist the king and Joseph against the army, besides the king's officers, his servants, and inhabitants of Egypt without number. And Joseph gave unto his mighty men and to all his host shields and javelins, and caps and coats of mail and stones for slinging. At that time the children of Tarshish came against the sons of Ishmael and made war with them. And the children of Tarshish spoiled the Ishmaelites for a long time. And the children of Ishmael were small in number in those days, and they could not prevail over the children of Tarshish, and they were sorely oppressed. And the old men of the Ishmaelites sent a record to the king of Egypt, saying, Send, I pray thee, unto thy servants, officers, and hosts to help us fight against the children of Tarshish, for we have been consuming away for a long time. And Pharaoh sent Joseph with the mighty men and hosts which were with him, and also his mighty men from the king's house. And they went to the land of Havilah, the children of Ishmael, to assist them against the children of Tarshish. And the children of Ishmael fought with the children of Tarshish. And Joseph smote the Tarshishites, and he subdued all their land. And the children of Ishmael dwell therein unto this day. And when the land of Tarshish was subdued, all the Tarshishites ran away and came in on the border of their brethren, the children of Javan. And Joseph, with all his mighty men and hosts, returned to Egypt, not one man of them missing. And at the revolution of a year, in the second year of Joseph's reigning over Egypt, Yahuwah gave great plenty throughout the land for 7 years, as Joseph had spoken. And Yahuwah blessed all the produce of the earth in those days for 7 years. And they ate and were greatly satisfied. And Joseph Joseph at that time had the officers under him, and they collected all the food of the good years, and heaped corn year by year, and they placed it in the treasuries of Joseph. And at any time when they gathered the food, Joseph commanded that they should bring the corn in the ears, and also bring with it some of the soil of the field, that it should not spoil. And Joseph did according to this year by year. And he heaped up corn like sand of the sea for abundance, for his stores were immense and could not be numbered for abundance. And also all the inhabitants of Egypt gathered all sorts of food in their stores in great abundance during the 7 good years. But they did not do unto it as Joseph did. And all the food which Joseph and the Egyptians had gathered during the 7 years of plenty was secured for the land and stores for the 7 years of famine, for the support of the whole land. And the inhabitants of Egypt filled each man his store and his concealed place with corn to be for support during the famine. And Joseph placed all the food that he had gathered in all the cities of Egypt, and he closed all the stores, and placed sentinels over them. And Joseph's wife Osnath, the daughter of Potiphera, bare him 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Joseph was 34 years old when he begat them. And the lads grew up, and they went in his ways and in his instructions, and they did not deviate from the way which their father taught them, either to the right or left. And Yahuwah was with the lads, and they grew up and had understanding and skill and all wisdom, and in all the affairs of government. And all the king's officers and his great men and of the inhabitants of Egypt exalted the lads, and they were brought up amongst the king's children. And the 7 years of plenty that were throughout the land were at an end, and the 7 years of famine came after them, as Joseph had spoken, and the famine was throughout the land. And all the people of Egypt saw that the famine had commenced in the land of Egypt, and all the people of Egypt opened their stores of corn, for the famine prevailed over them. And they found all the food that was in their stores full of vermin, not fit to eat. And the famine prevailed throughout the land. And all the inhabitants of Egypt came and cried before Pharaoh, and the famine was heavy upon them. And they said unto Pharaoh, Give food unto thy servants, and wherefore shall we die through hunger before thy eyes, even we and our little ones? And Pharaoh answered them, saying, And wherefore do you cry unto me? And wherefore do you cry unto me? Did not Joseph command that the corn should be laid upon during the 7 years of plenty, for the years of famine? And wherefore did you not hearken to his voice? And the people of Egypt answered the king, saying, As thy soul liveth, or Adonai, the servants have done all that Joseph ordered. For thy servants also gathered in the produce of their fields during the 7 years of plenty, and laid it in the stores unto this day. And when the famine prevailed over thy servants, we opened our stores, and behold, all our produce was filled with vermin, and was not fit for food. And when the king heard all that had befallen the inhabitants of Egypt, the king was greatly afraid on account of the famine, and he was much terrified. And the king answered the people of Egypt, saying, Since all this has happened unto you, go unto Joseph, and do whatever he shall say unto you. Transgress not his commands. And all the people of Egypt went forth, and came unto Joseph, and said unto him, Give unto us food, And wherefore shall we die before thee through hunger? For we gathered in our produce during the 7 years as thou didst command, and we put it in our store, and thus has it befallen us. And when Joseph heard all the words of the people of Egypt and what had befallen them, Joseph opened all his stores and of the produce, and he sold it unto the people of Egypt. And the famine prevailed throughout the land, and the famine was in all countries. But in the land of Egypt there was produce for sale. And all the inhabitants of Egypt came unto Joseph to buy corn, for the famine prevailed over them, and all their corn was spoiled. And Joseph sold it to all the people, or daily sold it to all the people of Egypt. And all the inhabitants of the land of Canaan and the Philistines, and those beyond the Jordan, and the children of the east, and all the cities of the land far and nigh, heard that there was corn in Egypt. And they all came to Egypt to buy corn, for the famine prevailed over them. And Joseph opened the stores of corn and placed officers over them. And they daily stood and sold to all that came. And Joseph knew that his brethren also would come to Egypt to buy corn, for the famine prevailed throughout the earth. And Joseph commanded all his people that they should cause it to be proclaimed throughout the land of Egypt, saying, It is the pleasure of the king of his second and their great men, that any person who wishes to buy corn in Egypt shall not send his servants to Egypt to purchase, but his sons, and also any Egyptian or Canaanite who shall come from any of their stores from buying corn in Egypt, and shall go and sell it throughout the land, he shall die. For no one shall buy but for the support of his household. And any man leading 2 or 3 beasts shall die, for a man shall only lead his own beast. And Joseph placed sentinels at the gates of Egypt, and commanded them, saying, Any person may come to buy corn, suffer him not to enter until his name and the name of his father and the name of his father's father be written down. And whatever is written by day, send their names unto me in the evening, that I may know their names. And Joseph placed officers throughout the land of Egypt, and he commanded them to do all these things. And Joseph did all these things, and made these statutes in order that he might know when his brethren should come to Egypt to buy corn. And Joseph's people caused it daily to be proclaimed in Egypt according to these words and statutes which Joseph had commanded. And in the inhabitants of the east and west country, and all the earth heard the statutes of regulations which Joseph had enacted in Egypt. And all the inhabitants of the extreme parts of the earth came, and they bought corn in Egypt day after day, and then went away. And all the officers of Egypt did as Joseph commanded. And all that came to Egypt to buy corn, the gatekeepers would write their names and their fathers' names, and daily bring them in the evening before Joseph. There it is, family. We're going to stop there. It's a really good place to stop. I know it wasn't an action-packed 7 chapters or nothing like that, but there's a lot of story in there, a lot of differences that you get from Jasher versus Genesis. Shalom to you, Lynn Bernard, Miss B, T.A. Thompson. Once again to Lamira Johnson. Let's see here. Trying to go back through the chat. And Sister Ruhama A. Bless y'all. Very much appreciate y'all tuning on in. Like I said, these chapters right here really wasn't all that action packed, but it is drama filled to a degree.
Oh, it has definitely much drama. Hello? Oh,
Hurry up.
Okay. Just making sure y'all can hear me.
Oh,
It
yeah,
got
we
real
can hear you just fine. I
Yeah,
was
I can
waiting
hear
on
y'all.
hurry
Okay,
up.
y'all. I'm in here. How you doing? I'm in here. I'm in here. I'm in here. I was just listening. I was waiting for somebody. Waiting for
Was I the only one
anybody to
that
go
heard
first.
about a 11-month-old baby talking, telling some stuff that he didn't have no business knowing?
Right.
Yeah, that's the part that was kind of creepy. That's something like I got a visual in my head of like 11-month-old baby, kind of with that sharp, turn. You know what I'm saying? How like the horror flicks do sometimes. They do a quick little camera turn, like, zit, and then the baby just stood straight up, just there talking to him in a grown folk voice, and all of a sudden got done speaking and went back to
Right.
man.
Ross, we were just talking this afternoon about um, just being steadfast in your decisions. And if nothing about this story you got, I hope you got the fact that no matter when God gives you a task to do, when He puts that conviction on your heart, that you have to stay steadfast in it, no matter what happens to you, no matter who persecutes you, no matter how much you're tempted, you still have to stay steadfast in what God has asked you to do, whatever that walk is. No matter how your lights get cut off, no matter how your car got wrecked, no matter how you can't pay the bills, no matter how anything, you still have to stay steadfast in your conviction.
Yep.
Right.
Hallelujah. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, man. What I got from a lot. I heard my my story and I call it my story because I always tell it to people. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm one of those people that once I had my awakening, I struggled from dealing with a lot of lust. But I heard my story that I call this the cure to lust. You know what I mean?
Have we
That
lost them?
Judah and Tamar story. Hello, can y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I just
Uh-oh.
but yeah, that Judah and Tamar story. I always tell people to go read that if they're struggling with lust. You know what I mean? That really kind of changed my perspective around after I had my awakening and I kind of heard that Judah and Tamar story. And it wasn't so much a Judah and Tamar, it was the sons at the beginning. And I heard that story and I was just like, yo, like that was my cure. I was done. I was, you know what I'm saying? I still fight my lust every now and then, but that was one of those stories that I always recommend to people that's dealing with lust to read that story because that story, especially the part dealing with his sons, it really, I don't know how it does for the people, but it really touched me in a way to where, it really kind of changed my mind around with a lot of stuff, but I mean, I just really, I mean, I love reading this story about Joseph. The story about Joseph is filled with a lot of stuff, a lot of um
Kind of breaking up.
really action. Oh, you can hear me? You can hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay, but it's not really an action pack like the action pack type. You listen to Joseph,
Yeah, you
you're getting
breaking
a
up
lot of
again, bro.
truth. I mean, okay, hello. Can you hear me again?
I can hear you, but you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I'm not at the house right now. That's why I was kind
Ah,
of waiting. You know what I mean? I don't what? Hello.
yep.
I'm not at the house right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm breaking up real bad.
Well, it's a little clean right now, but it was breaking up pretty bad.
Oh, now I at least can hear him. I couldn't hear him
Okay,
at
well,
all.
okay. What Sister Sharita, go ahead. I'm only like maybe like 5 minutes from the house. You could go ahead and speak for a little minute, and I'll jump back in when I got a little better service. Cause I'm
No,
still
you
on the
said
road
I
right now.
can. Well, I can hear you fine now. At first, I couldn't hear you at all, and then I could hear you on the broadcast, but I couldn't hear you on the stage. So I logged in and logged back out, and now I can hear you fine.
Okay, all right, all right. So you can hear me, Ross?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
It was just kind of
But
going in
yeah,
and
I
out
was
here
just
and
saying
there.
about okay. Well, what I was saying about like how you were saying it's not this story. You know what I'm saying? The story of Joseph doesn't really have like a lot of like you said, the action, and it does have action, but you get a lot of truth from Joseph. You know what I'm saying? With just the story. You know what I mean? Like Joseph that's the story that we get the part of, and I don't think we all the way down to that part yet, but we always we you this is the story where you get kind of that we use this a lot when proving who we are. You know what I mean? When their brothers went down there to Egypt and they couldn't recognize him. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of pinpoints you got to look for when you listening to Joseph, because see, just by the you know what I'm saying, how Joseph, when you're paying attention to the story, a lot of truth is being brought out about the old world. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of the old world in Joseph, and
Well,
it's almost like to where you're basically putting the goggles on to the old world, and you can really see because it's so descriptive. You know what I'm saying? There's not really a lot of action stuff going on to where some of the other stories to where you just got to be wild all the time. But when you sit there and when you sit there and read the book of Job, when you sit there and read the story of Joseph, you get that real look into the old, into the past, into that ancient time of date. You really get it really paints a picture of everything, all the way down to the palace, to the slavery that Joseph witnessed, and to the jail, to what jail was like back then. You get a full description of everything that was going on back in those old days, or the ancient days, and that you know what I mean, that you could really do a lot of cross referencing with in today.
all right. I get some of that, but I do want to offer one little bit of correction though. What talks about Judah's sons and Tamar. See, I don't want to
Right.
be disgusting or too blunt, but I say it like this: once the first commandment of the Most High to Adam was to go forth and multiply, right?
Right.
Right?
All right.
Right.
So when you get to this part right here in Jasher, where both of Yehuda's sons had lay with Tamar, but I like I said, I'm not trying to be nasty, but they pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
didn't. They didn't.
exactly.
They
That's that.
didn't. They
That's the
didn't
part.
multiply
Yeah,
with
that's the
her.
part. Right.
They
Yeah.
didn't. They didn't marry her. They didn't produce seed with
Right.
her. And that's where they offended the Most
Right.
High. They're supposed to be children of Abraham
Right.
and of the covenant to go forth and multiply, to be multiplied as the stars
Right.
in the sky or the sands of the sea. And they transgressed that covenant, that promise to multiply.
Right.
So that's what killed both of them
Right.
because they didn't want to
Right.
have a kid with her.
Right.
So
Right.
and it
That's
wasn't
what I was saying.
until
That's the part of the story. That's the part of the story. That's what exactly what I was saying, brother Rouse. That changed my mind about lust. You know what I mean? Because if when you're fornicating, you know what I mean. I don't want to be that way. You know what I'm saying? To go into this type of talk, but that was kind of the cure for lust for me. Because when I sat there and think about what happened with them, I mean, because anybody fornicating, you're doing that or you're doing some type of base of that. You know what I mean? And that led me to know about how important my seed is, and that you know what I'm saying, in that way, and that I always request that to people to go read that when they're dealing with a situation of lust. And I don't know, people always come back and be like, hey man, that changed me, just like it changed me. And that's why that's all I was pointing out about that. But you hit it right there on the nail when you said you I didn't want to explain what they was doing, but you said you hit it right there on the nail. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to explain what they was doing right there on the nail. But you see, that the that made me have the fear of the Most High. You see what I'm saying? From knowing that, when you in that type of lifestyle, that's what you're doing. You know what I mean? And when I read that, that put that fear of the Most High back in me to maybe like, hey man, you gonna think twice before you do this now. You know what I mean? and and I always and everybody, you know what I'm saying, everybody that I come into that has a problem with lust, you know what I'm saying, and even myself, you know what I'm saying, if I feel like I'm being attacked, I always go back to that their story. That's all I was trying to say about that story.
No doubt. Another good thing that I guess that can help against lust and whatnot is if you look at um, how Joseph had handled with Zalika. You know what I'm saying? You know, he wouldn't look her in the eye for nothing. And then she kept saying, talking about how beautiful his eyes are. He's like, well, if you know, if they were, if I was in the grave and you looked at my eyes, then I bet you'd want to get far from them. You know
Well,
what I'm saying?
you was definitely right that this was full of drama. This was better than any Love and Hip Hop if you ever seen it. Um,
Right.
can you imagine how, ladies? I mean, I can't leave this out, ladies. Can you imagine how fine this man had to be for her to continuously throw herself at him after constantly being rejected? Us women don't like to be rejected any more than men like to be rejected. But she kept on. She was rejected so often that she was physically sick, like she was on her deathbed. Now, can you imagine that Love and Hip Hop story or the Atlanta Housewives? One of these, people, just famous people, just laid up sick because this handsome Hebrew just walked into their life. Honey.
Man, I hate to
Yeah,
bring up R. Kelly like that, but he made a song. He made that song right there. Don't wanna go on, baby.
There you go.
This is my soul, baby.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't sing for nothing. I clown doing it though,
I
right
can definitely say love and hip hop don't have no more. It doesn't have more juice than the word of the
And,
Most
and
High.
I'm
Like
just using it
the
for an
Bible and the
example.
Bible.
Yeah, like she
I don't
was love sick,
myself
but
it just does something to my. I mean, it does something to my spirit every time I see it, and it really provokes a little anger when I'm in public, and that's all people can talk about is some episode of this particular show, and it's just like, do you have anything else? Do you have any more substance to you? So, yeah.
yeah, it is sad.
Right.
It is sad that our people are caught up in a whole lot of nonsense and smoke and mirrors and distraction and all that stuff. Because like we're saying right now, there's so much advice all throughout the scriptures, and
Hmm.
I really wish that I don't know, I kind of get that Eshawn Burgundy line running through my head a little bit, like I'm trying to remember what song is it from. Yeah, it's from the song Hangman, where he said so many times I sat back and wished that you would do things different. Turns out those times I found out I had no business wishing. You know, so I don't. I had. We all got to go through things in life to get us to where we're supposed to be. All grace and praise, all praise to the Most High Yah for those of us that get to this point of repentance to where we see the problem with what we've done, the mistakes we've made. We seek repentance. We've come to that place of brokenness. You know,
Yes.
so all thanks and praise to the Most High Yah for those of us that have finally been able to see what needs changing.
Yeah.
Now, all the I'm sitting here getting ready to say, well, I wish I would have had this a whole lot sooner. But if I'd have
Hmm.
had, this kind of understanding sooner, I wouldn't have the testimony in which I have right now to
Yep.
tell people this is what
Right.
I'm suffering. This is what I'm going through because
This is
this
how
is
I
how
got here.
this is how I got here. Because I was hard headed enough back then to not either, well, I was either given the disposition of a broken home, broken family, and I didn't have nobody, no one to train me up, or even when I did have my Bible with me, I wasn't partaking of the scriptures because I was distracted
Mhm.
by life.
Yep.
So if I would have had all this
Right.
then, I wouldn't have the testimony that I have right now. So I guess that's where I don't have no business wishing that I have it. I'd have it different.
Yeah. And
Yes.
we
I
couldn't
completely
we couldn't
understand that.
understand people. We wouldn't be able to relate. If I mean, just we've all come across pastors or people in high positions where they put on this facade, um, that they're kind of holier than thou and they're above reproach, and you just feel like you just can't relate to them at all because they don't know where you've come from. They don't know what you've been through. How can you possibly
Right.
understand my struggle if you just had a silver and a gold spoon in your mouth all your life?
Yeah. Some folks don't know what it's like to struggle. You know,
Mm.
and that's where you get a lot of your holier than thou type people at. They either don't know what it's like to struggle. They come from money, and more than likely they reek of churchianity.
Or they take their lives because they can't endure the struggle.
Yeah, that's the sad part. That's the sad part when they can't even endure, step up to the plate, to go through it. It's hard.
Right. I can definitely relate. I could
Yeah.
definitely relate with that. That a lot of people, we sometimes I say that too. You know what I'm saying? I definitely relate to what you were saying, Rouse, about sometimes I wish I would have got this earlier. But when I sit there and think about everything that I've been through and everything that I've struggled through and all my trials and tribulations, I wouldn't have, see if I would have had this about a grew up in the church, I wouldn't have understood this last day's revelation. I wouldn't have understood it. You know what I'm saying? These curses, these everything that brought me into my awakening, I wouldn't have been able to understand it. You know what I mean? So when it was being preached to me, or when I was reading it, it jumped off the page in my face because, like, remember when I think I told you this, when I finally found out about the description about the Hebrews, I was running around when they was telling me that the Hebrew women used to wear hoop earrings and bonnets on their head. Now they wasn't wearing the bonnets that was the wraps. They got the ghetto bonnet now. But when I came to my awakening, every chick in the project had that on. Big old hoop earrings, you know what I'm saying, and the little bonnets on their head. Man, I was spooked when I first got my awakening. I'm like, wow. And I saw the bandanas. Every cat in the project got bandanas around their head. You know what I'm saying? Like, my struggle, my trial, I wouldn't have understood the message that was coming through if I would have grew up in that church, because I'd have been just like those urban apologetics. I wouldn't have been able to believe it if I'd have grew up in the church. You know what I mean? But being that I was in the hood, when it finally got brought to me, I had to I could have clearly see and understand exactly what the book was talking about. You know what I mean? So in the sense of that, we really can't curse our trial. In the sense of that, I pray. I thank the Most High Yah for my trial, because if it wasn't for my trial, I wouldn't have understood His word.
Mhm. Praising him through the circumstance. I think that's one of Mary Mary's lyrics right there. Most definitely, I think we wouldn't be where we are today as a nation if we could not, if we didn't go through the struggles. It would be no point of God doing everything that He's done already, because we could have never learned the lesson. We could have never, the awakening had to come by us realizing who we were and what we've done and what we're doing and what time that we're in. And if without those struggles, we couldn't have never seen it. There's no way you could, because you're
Right.
oblivious. You have everything you want, you need. Life is great and grand. There's no way you can see it. You can't see you can't see through the veil when everything is going well. You can't. Now that you see that, you had tests that you've overcome, and it only now. I'm still going through tests. They didn't just miraculously disappear. Matter of fact, they've actually gotten
Right,
worse.
right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? But the thing is, I was just telling Ross just today. Um, I do have worries. I do get sad. I do all these things, but beneath it all, I'm happy. And the reason why I'm happy is because I know I can get through this because of all the things that have been going on in my life before now.
Right,
Even even,
right.
even if these things even if these things are harder than the things in my past, I do realize that that I can get through it no matter what. Because of all the little things leading up to this. They've all built on top of one another, making a very clear path for me.
Yeah, I could completely understand. It's like David when he had his bear and then he had his lion, but that was all just preparing him for Goliath.
Yeah, I was just sitting here looking at some of the next upcoming chapters, and while y'all was talking, I was listening and paying attention, and so yeah, the G fight coming up in the next couple of next chapters. In the next reading, we're gonna get to the G fight.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
And that's where it all started from with us three. It all started from us reading that together.
yeah, yeah. Just reading that right there, and then going from there, and like, you know what, we should read this out loud. Like
Right,
more people got to hear this.
right. I
So
think we chopped it up for almost 4 hours just on that, just from that little reading. You know what I mean? Like so much
yeah,
fellowship came out of that.
oh yeah, it's getting ready to go down. So we getting ready to go. We getting ready to have the next coming up parts because we just got done seeing how Joseph just got magnified and everything, and then how he just made the decree because he knew his brothers were going to come up there trying to get some corn. So we're gonna see how you know all that plays out, how he teases them, messes with them, and then reveals that he is who he is. So we're gonna get to that right there. But then after that, oh my goodness, it's gonna go down. Can't wait to get
Yeah.
Do you mind putting the link to Jasher in the chat? I know we didn't do it the last couple of times, and I meant to remind you.
Oh, okay. And I did forget to
Justin,
pray us in this time again too. I forgot. Yeah,
we're
I
I
gonna get it
forgot I said
together.
that.
and
Yeah.
look, I started to remind you, but right when you was doing it, right when you started reading, I jumped in the car to hit mute.
Go.
Because I know it was gonna be too much noise when I jumped in the car. So I'm home now. I know y'all could probably tell I'm home now. So I made it home safe.
Well, I'm glad. How
So
far was the drive? Was it the whole 2 hours?
No, it's just a hour and a half from New Iberia to back to Baton Rouge.
Okay.
well, definitely glad you got back safe. Sure enough. Well,
Yeah.
family,
Thanks for.
go ahead.
I was in ready to say thanks for tuning in, being with us tonight because you didn't have to, and I hope your daughter enjoyed listening tonight. What's her name again?
Anaya.
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 Thanks for listening, Anaya. Oh yeah. Oh
Sure
yeah.
enough.
and look, my new one is Maya.
Look at you. I see you. I see you.
There you
And then,
go.
the crazy part, I wasn't even awakened when I wasn't awakened when I named my
Real.
daughter Anaya.
Oh, wow.
I didn't understand that until, and then when Pastor Darby and a lot of other people. I think Teo even brought that up about, how the slaves, they came over here with names, with slave names, and they all ended in Yah. When you type in Yah in the slave database,
Yeah.
a bunch of names pop up with ending in Yah, and Anaya was one of those names, and it was just on my mind, and I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't even awoke. I was hard down in the streets, and I fought my wife to name my daughter Anaya, and that's how it came out. And it's just so much, and it's a dozen of us that's like that. Not just my daughter's name, Keisha. All these
Mhm.
even Sharita. All these
Yeah.
we came off the boat. They call them ghetto names, but these are the names that we chose to name these children. They call them ghetto names because it wasn't those European names that they wanted to give us. But when we started naming our own kids again, it's funny how all these Jeremiahs and Mikaels and Els and Elohim, come
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure enough.
And we
Both of
went, and
my
like I
kids'
said,
last names, their names, last letter is A in their name. Yeah.
right. And like I said, I wasn't even awake. And then the people that's making these ghetto names, that half of them ain't awake. Half of them ain't awake, but they naming their children Maya, Yaya, you know, all these names that go back, even the ghetto names that they want to call for the boys. All these boys'
Yolanda.
names ending in L. Where all these boys, Mikael, Denzel, all these L's come from, you know?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait for the next one too, Miss B. Sure enough. Are y'all gonna be a matter of fact, before I get to saying too much, business has started picking up a whole lot lately. Let me go ahead and
I'm glad. I'm glad.
yeah, me too. I've been needing it. I'm
Well, I,
man,
I'm, 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 I'm conflicted. I'm glad business is picking up for you financially, but what is like the state of, what does that really look like for the V, the big V?
right.
So, yeah.
I do get that. And I'm trying to patiently pay attention because I already know that it's nowhere near as glorious as we think. Yeah, I'm good for Tuesday.
Right,
Okay.
right. Well, I'm good for Tuesday too. But we speaking of the V, like y'all know, like I told you, I was at this family gathering, and that came up, and I felt like I clarified, and I might have, what I'm saying, put a second thought into a lot of my family's mind, because most of my family not awake, not woke, if you want to put that in terms, you know what I'm saying, but they were talking about the jab, and I was just talking to them about a lot of things, and it kind of some of them, a lot of them are nurses and stuff like that in the medical field, and they kind of looked at it from a different perspective. You know what I mean? Those are kind of those are I don't know if y'all have that with y'all family in a way. You know what I'm saying? Those are kind of the a lot of people are talking about this now. You know what I mean? This is just what I'm saying, this is not just a woke talk no more. You know what I mean? This is a common talk. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
this is really just coming up, you know what I mean? And I felt like in a way, you know what I'm saying, even though I was kind of misplaced, you know what I mean? Like I said, because I was trying to be done with the whole gathering thing before I got on, but in a way, the Most High kind of set me there to be that, because a lot of them was agreeing with just going ahead and getting it, and I was like, nah.
Ooh.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I kind of and in the cool on the cool, I'm kind of glad I had a lot of those tail teachings and those Shonda at large put a lot of information out about it to kind of come back, because see, when I was, what I'm saying, I'm not talking to common people, I'm talking to people that's nurses and stuff like that in the industry and stuff like that, and when I kind of explained some of the things, the teachings that they had, then like I said, those weapons, I call them weapons, that they, what I'm saying, that we supply our community with, and they started to kind of like, yeah, like, you're right though. I can't, I could go, what I'm saying, I can't go against my job, but you're right.
Yeah, I saw something on Channel 6 News yesterday for Columbus, Ohio, whatnot. But they trying to convert like some small stadiums and whatever, like into mass vac sites and stuff like that. And that's
Yes.
yeah, that's yeah, they on some silliness.
Well, your city was one of the first ones that came out with them having FEMA camps for kids separate from adults. I remember reading
Yeah,
that, like, was it about 3-4 months back?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
all around Ohio because I ended up sharing
Mhm.
that because there was a reporter up in from Mansfield, Ohio, that asked a question live to Governor DeWine, asking him, "Well, what's up with all these FEMA camps popping up all over Ohio?" Well, Channel 6 News and everybody else cut his response off, but Ohio News Network continued, recording and aired his response. It was like 45 seconds of dialogue that ABC 6, the regular 4, 6, and 10 or whatever, they cut off. But if you don't have Ohio News Network, which is like a pretty much a secondary paid for channel or whatever, I think, then you wouldn't have heard what he said. And what he came out his mouth with was like, "Oh well, that's just for the people that don't feel safe in their own homes." And this was
Mhm.
all premature in the game, all
Yep.
kinds of premature in the game. Like,
Right.
why would nobody feel safe in their own homes? Why if that's your excuse
Mhm.
for building FEMA camps and such, why would people not feel safe in their own homes?
And then shortly after that, then New York State
Crazy.
went in to do what they did, to make laws that they could detain you for up to 3 months without any hearing, and then they could have a hearing and hold you indefinitely. And basically, it said if you had a bad attitude, that's how the wording was. I was like, "Are you kidding me? So if I'm angry about being here, you're gonna keep me longer?"
Wow.
That's some old
Wow.
Sodom and Gomorrah mentality right there. Like,
Yeah.
some old
Yeah.
ridiculousness. Like, I'm supposed to be okay with this discomfort? No, no.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
No.
just
But look,
supposed to
this
be
is my
glad that you.
Like,
my
yeah.
point that I made at the gathering at the party today. I told them, I said, y'all think about this, because they came up with a whole lot of stuff, back and forth. And I said, look, y'all think about this. I said, now, America has never, everything good, everything that's good that works and stuff like that, you know, they sell it. This is for free. The biggest cure, so say, for the biggest virus that ever hit the planet Earth. Y'all giving it out for free. I think, man, if y'all was selling it for $5, maybe I'd think about it. But y'all won't pass this off for free? Nothing? Y'all ain't never gave nothing out for free.
Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Nothing at all. And then if the whole V thing and the jab didn't get you before, Johnson and Johnson coming out with one should get you. These people are right
Right?
now have a lawsuit against them, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because they was putting cancer causing agents in baby powder. Come
And
on,
baby
baby
powder.
powder.
Right. Yeah, they on some man, they on some all kinds of foolery. Oh
Right,
man,
right,
it's ridiculous. And
right. But
like
family, that
I've
was
said,
the
I don't know
talk.
how many times, like, as much whodunits as America watches, all these detective shows and how to get away with this, that, and the third that
Say
America
that.
watches and all that stuff. Can't nobody tell who the evil genius is in this B-side movie. Can't
Right.
nobody
No.
tell who the bad guy is. Really? Like, really? Like, out of all these shows that you watch, you know good and well, after all these shows you done watched, you done figured out who the bad guy was before commercial break.
Ain't that it?
Right.
But
Right.
now we can't tell who the bad guys are. Really?
But when we were
Right.
asleep, we
Really?
definitely couldn't.
In
When
this
we were
real
asleep, we
life, like
definitely
we in
couldn't.
real life, we can't figure out who the bad guy is.
Mm.
It's simple. It's real clear to see. It's very crystal clear. You hear me?
But we say that now because we're awake. because we are awake, we see it. But 9 months ago, I didn't see it. It was, when I was out there protesting, and I would come home and watch the news, and they were calling us terrorists. I'm like, terrorists. And then I shortly thereafter had my awakening, and I realized, if they're calling us terrorists, what are they calling the people out there in Iraq? What are they calling the people, ISIS and all these other different,
Right.
3-letter organizations? Are they really terrorists? Or are they people that are fed up with the BS?
Right. That part.
Yeah, yeah, that does make you wonder a little bit, you know.
Because if you're calling a mom of two that was fed up with seeing black men murdered in the street a terrorist, me, Sharita Long, a terrorist. No,
Right. Right. And see,
no.
that's how they make us
Law-abiding
look. Cause see,
citizen, taxpayer, loving mother.
right.
That's what I am.
Right. And see, once you get to throwing rocks back, cause you see, remember back in the day, I ain't gonna say too back in the day. Y'all know I can't go too far back in the day like I was there. But I remember, when they was sitting there talking about the Palestinians, and now we see why the Palestinians was throwing rocks at tanks. You know what I mean? Like, what sense does that make to throw a rock at a tank? You know what I'm saying? A tank could destroy you, but they was picking up rocks, throwing rocks at tanks. You know what I'm saying? And it was what they was calling them, terrorists. You know what I'm saying? But we see the
What can a
same thing
rock really
going
do to
on.
a tank?
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly. They got
I
us doing the
definitely
same
saw it.
thing now.
I definitely saw it in the protests. They came down there. They called the National Guard down there to protect the statues. You can get the National Guard to come and protect a thing, but you can't get the National Guard to come down and get the police in line. You can't you can't do
Right,
ride-alongs
Hmm.
and make sure
right.
that they do what they're supposed
Awful.
to do. You can't police the police, but you can protect statues.
Yeah,
I
just
was
like that
disgusted.
that weird little it's not weird, it's an egregious daggone law they came up with down there in Georgia just a couple weeks ago. To
Mm-hmm.
where now if you see a cop abusing somebody, brutalizing somebody, or saw the cop shoot somebody in the back and breaking the law, if you interrupt them and hurt their feelings with
Mm-hmm.
calling them out on their BS for what they're doing, you could be held liable for assaulting an officer or some kind
Yes,
of
I heard
ridiculous
that.
thing.
That makes no
I
sense.
heard that. It makes no
Right.
sense. You
Yeah.
What happened if you thought of, I heard, many years before now that they were taking our rights away little by little. I didn't see it. I see it now. I can't even tell you wrong. I
Yeah.
can't point out what you've done wrong. I don't have any freedom of speech. But somebody can
None.
call me the N word or tell me that I'm not nothing. People can call me moderate. They can call me a Negro. They can tell me that I can't call myself an Israelite, but I can't tell you nothing. I'm a criminal.
It's crazy. It is very crazy. But you know what it is? This is a war. This is the war on the thoughts. See, they're gonna get it to the point to where you can't even think about the truth. That's what they're trying to get it to. You know what I mean? They don't like us. See, even like now, they don't like us posting these truth memes. Truth. When you're on the social media now, these fact checkers wasn't out until we start spitting facts. You know what I mean?
Mm.
These fact checkers was not out until we started spitting facts.
And how many times did the fact checkers get it wrong? I posted something on Facebook, and it was about a change shortage, and somebody had posted it and said there was a change shortage. I reposted it, and I got a ping back from Facebook talking about I was spreading lies. And then I went into the grocery store the very next day and saw a very similar sign in the
A
checkout
sign.
line, and I
Yeah.
took a picture of it and posted that, and basically said the same thing that I'm saying now, that how Facebook get that wrong.
Right. It's just when their narrative gets exposed. is what it is, and that's when they so called fact checkers want to go ahead and go against, and block you, and and all that other thing. Yeah, they it's when their whole narrative gets exposed, and then when other people start talking truth about it and exposing more truth about what's going on, that's when they get mad. Like, no, 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 you can't be saying that. Don't say that. Stop saying that. They don't want you awake.
Right.
You, I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember exactly who was saying that. Exactly what they said. Because it was good. Like, you spoke. Like, they don't want that. Like, bottom line, they coming at us like you ain't supposed to be awake yet. What are you doing? What are you doing awake? You
Well,
Right.
supposed to be, you supposed to
this
still.
is very
Matter of fact, I think it was Karis. I think it was Brother Karis that said that. Was like he was somewhere across seas or whatever, and he was woke on a situation, and he said something. It was like, oh, whoa, you supposed to be asleep. You still supposed to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
asleep.
yeah,
well. It's
yeah.
this
I think I
this
caught that
what we're
show.
going through. What we're going through right now is very similar to the story that we just heard. They want they've enticed us with all the things of this world, and now that we want to have a conversation with um our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there's a problem. And when we continue to go to our God about the problems that we're having, we're continuously getting bombarded, whether it's with the jab or with fake information or making light of things that are going on, like the deaths behind the jab, or the reason for all the earthquakes and volcanoes, or the lack of information therein. We're just continuously being bombarded. And I don't know if y'all see it the way I see it, but it's something every day. It's 10 somethings every day, all over the globe. And we have to continue to stay fast in our belief because we know that there is a reward on the other end of this. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's frustrating. Um, and all I can tell you is keep crying out, keep living through
Definitely.
it, keep crying out.
Hallelujah. Yeah,
All praise.
hallelujah. Because we need them. We need them.
Yeah.
If I knew the exact words to cry out, to bring him to bring him here now, whew,
Mm.
man.
Right. Right. It's kind of like what Jacoba said. Jacoba said, "Man, if we don't, if he don't come get us now, we in some trouble, man. We in some
We
trouble."
in some trouble.
Yeah,
We are
like
definitely are.
I'm definitely praying on them to come get us soon before they gets too daggone bad. I mean, we know from the scriptures though that there will be martyrs. We cannot be ignorant to this. That's one thing that I can't really stress enough in these times of tribulation of what's going on. We have to be reminded by the scriptures that there will be martyrs. It's going to happen. I know we don't want it to happen like that, but the Father's word will never go out and come back void. It's just not going to happen.
Boy, yeah,
You know what I'm
I
saying?
wouldn't
So
even, I know that it's a hard thing to talk about, but, you know, when I was 13, I saw Roots for the first time. And I knew that I could never be a slave. And I made it up in my mind at 13 years old that I would rather die. And, the more and more that I talk with you guys, the more and more that I'm in this walk, I realized my awakening did not happen 8 months ago, 9 months ago. It was a slow progression of things. If I even look back 3 years ago, I stopped celebrating all these holidays. It didn't sit right with my flesh anymore. And then maybe 2 years prior to that, I remember praying a prayer about my faith, and all these different religions in the world, and saying, God, you can't just penalize me. It's all these different religions out here. Please show me what was right. Because I don't want to go to hell, but it's just so much fake stuff out here, Lord. I couldn't see it. I saw something then, but I couldn't put it into necessarily words. I just knew something wasn't right because I knew there was a God, because I have a relationship with God. There's no way you can tell me the things that I have been in, gone through, and gotten out of, that it was my doing. I'm not that smart. I don't have that much
Right,
strength.
right, right.
I hear
And you
you.
said something. You said something in there that really touched me, because I had that same cry. When you said that, you said, "Show me." You said, "Most High, show me what's real." That was my cry when because I wasn't when I had my awakening, I wasn't on the right path, but I kind of just wanted to know what was up. And by knowing by trying to know what was up, because the Mike Brown thing had really touched me, you know what I mean? And I was looking into all these stuff, you know what I mean? And I started listening to some of these Kemet brothers. Now I wasn't into the Kemet stuff. Get you right, you know what I'm saying? I knew something was up with that. I was never into the Kemet stuff, but they was always bringing news about black people being shot and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And when I would find out what they was into, I would be like, it would make me wonder, like, hey, what is, and I asked the Most High. I had the same cry, sister. And I said, show me what's real. And I'm in either like a week or two or something like that. Through one of their pages, they came it now. Through one of their pages, I was listening to them talk about some news, and they played Pastor Darby, and and now from that point in, it was like I was listening to them for nothing. I was just listening to. It's like the Most High had me listening to them just to get that little piece of a message. And then when I got on his page, it was over with. But I had that
Well, it took
same
me
cry. I asked him to show me.
it, it took me some years later, and plenty of cries later, to get to where I am now. It took the George Floyd incident. It took the video I seen from the BBC, and like I told y'all, I had I screamed at the top of my lungs for 20 minutes. I mean,
Right.
because it was literally like this download of information that I got, and it was a lot, and I believed everything that came. I knew it to be true in the core of my body. I knew what I was seeing and hearing was true.
So y'all
And
see
I
what
was,
y'all see what Sister Lynn Bernard put up here?
yeah, I saw that mess. The whole time
Yeah.
I was chatting, I was like, these people are trying to get us killed.
Mm.
Yeah, I was reading through it.
Yeah, I've seen that older dude before on another video. I'm trying to remember what I can't remember if it was Hebrews and Negroes or whatever. But I remember they was over there in Egypt, like right over towards the corner of Egypt, the northeastern corner, and they were talking about the tectonic
Right, right,
plate. Talking about it all
right.
being on the African tectonic
Yeah,
plate.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
So I
remember that video.
I was kind of you know cool with that dude at that point in time, but then I haven't seen nothing else from the guy.
Mhm.
And so when I saw what Minister Tayu was going through, was was looking at the video that was put up by Pac Lee and whatnot, and this dude was trying to come out with saying that foolishness, talking about that they are
Black folks is
black
spitting on
Right,
Americans, giving white folks here COVID on purpose because we want reparations and to be kicked out of the country.
right,
That was some
right. That part,
foolishness from
it
that
was,
dude.
yeah,
but
yeah,
what it
yeah.
showed,
But you know what?
but if you, okay, I'm sorry, go
And
ahead.
then Miss B says,
No,
"I
you can
wonder
go
why
ahead.
that guy said all that crazy stuff."
It was propaganda. If you listen, you can hear where the propaganda is. They're admitting that white people are getting this more than us, and they're trying to blame it on us.
Yeah.
Right.
See, the narrative has been that Black people are more susceptible to this disease, and because of all of our pre-existing conditions, we're the problem. But the CDC website says something very different. Now they're trying to change up the narrative because their documentation does not support their narrative. And they've been trying to create a black and white war for real strong in the last 8 months. That whole George Floyd thing was to get martial law put into action.
It's
They
been longer
thought
than
that
that.
Negroes. I'm just saying that they have ramped it up in the last 8 months. This was supposed to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and when we didn't fall for the trap,
Take the bait.
The Caucasians took the bait and ran with it. And I guess they thought we were supposed to jump on the bandwagon with them and act stupid. But we're not. We're sitting back and we eating popcorn watching all y'all stupidness.
Right. And I want to say one thing about that cat there, because Ross, you're right. That's the only video that I saw him on too, when he was talking about Israel being on the African tectonic plates. That's the only video I saw of him. But I'm gonna say this: I knew that he was full of it when they had. Now I've never saw this on TV. You know what I mean? But BET had aired a little documentary or some type of little show, not a show, you know what I mean? But it was like a little something that they played on BET about him when he was first going to Demona and stuff like that, and taking the African Americans with him and stuff like that. And see, for him just being on TV, and like, I knew it was something. It had to be something. You can't be too real and be really with the truth. They're not gonna trust you like that to put you on TV and wake everybody up. You see what I'm saying? When I saw that BET had a little clip. Yeah, exactly. When I went back and looked, and I saw that had aired with it, but it was, he was the leader behind all of that and stuff like that. When I saw that it aired that raised a red flag on me about him. So when Teo finally displayed that, it kind of what it did was it confirmed what I had in my spirit about him already. You know what I mean?
Now this guy, 2 points I'm gonna make. I've never seen him before, but I want to know: do they not have combs in Iraq, Israel, wherever you were? Because did you see how matted his beard was? It's like they pulled him out of a dungeon somewhere, or off the street next to a garbage can, and put him in front of the camera. I mean, I know the Hebrew is the bruises wearing the beards and the locks but that was homelessness looking. That was, a man of God is supposed to be taking care of himself. He did not look well kept at all.
Well, I mean, I would say if I mean, I hear what you're saying, but that we can't get caught up in the holier than thou.
Go back and look at that beard. Go back and look at it.
We can't get caught up in the churchianity of a man or a woman of God is supposed to always look a certain way, because I mean, even scripturally, we can look back and see how some of the prophets was rolling, and they didn't, I mean, look at John the Baptist.
Yeah.
John the Baptist, even New Testament, like his arraignment had camel hair and leather loincloth straps. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So he had a leather clothy outfit. No big deal. Look, I'm
saying that I agree with you though, that on the strength that I think there's a good possibility, especially after Brother Hario said that he saw that dude on BET. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think he
I
could be
agree, Miss
Boule.
B. He boule. Yeah, he boule.
He'd have to be Boule or something like that to get an audience on BET. You know, I remember Corey Red said a long time ago that this rapper Corey Red, this holy hip hop artist Corey Red from back in the day that I used to listen to, that he had on this one song. He said something like in PBS really owns BET. Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
So like so there's they don't want us, woke. That's why they got you know the Tyler Perry takeover on BET and the Oprah Winfrey takeover on BET and all that stuff been
Right.
going on
Right.
for a grip. All they best boule sellout puppets is
Oh,
all running BET with all they little shows and whatnot.
they coming out of the woodworks. I mean, every day it's a new one getting the vaccine, telling you how another doctor, this, that, and I don't know. This one doctor, she said she just quit her job so she could teach black people that the vaccine is okay. Are you kidding me?
No.
Are you kidding me?
They tap
And I can
dancing.
and I see how people can get lulled back to sleep, but people don't. If you have been awakened, go back to your when you start doubting yourself, go back to your awakening story. What woke you up in the first place? Go back to it and
Right.
remember that situation, because if it was anything like mine, it is memorable and there is no doubt that the Most High was at hand in all of that. So don't be discouraged. And when you do, just think back and call on Yahusha for some help and strength and guidance.
Yep.
Yeah. Go back to your first works. Go back to your
The
first
first
work. That's
fruits.
Bible.
That's first fruits. You know, and I think right along with that, um, I think I'll make mention. I won't go into too much depth and detail because you know about it, sis. But there's a there's a I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Since I'm trying to talk about it. Um, Unfortunately, there are some of us that have woken up and have they've been experiencing all kinds of spiritual attack ever
Hmm.
since they came into the truth. And now that they've came into the truth, they're going through so much spiritual attack that they can't handle it. And unfortunately, there's a person that I was talking to you about, sis, earlier on, that no longer wants to have the relationship with the Most High, and they're backing out, and that's a sad, sad thing, and that's starting to hurt me to where it's like I don't. Oh man, I don't like the fact that they pretty much giving up all their spiritual armor. They don't want to pick it up no more. That's a sad,
And
sad thing.
today would have been a good time for this person to come and listen, because that this is exactly that. It's This man was under spiritual attack the whole time. I mean, from the time his brothers um pretended that he was dead and they sold him, he was continuously under attack. When if it wasn't his brothers, it was this Jezebel spirit that was after him. And
Mm-hmm.
then the
Right.
insecure husband and the jailers and the prison, he just kept getting attacked over and over and over again. And I understand how this person you're talking about feels, because like I was saying before, I'm in that place where every time I turn around, it's something. And it's not little. It's not I broke my toenail. I just got my nails done and it broke. My whole car is totaled out. You know, things I've been working towards them broke down. Stuff all this week, everything electronic I have touched has broken. Like it's like I have this, like I have some super current running through my hands. And I touch electronics and they're messing up, they're glitching. I know Ashonda at large was, I think that was her that was doing that stuff about, us being in, I don't know exactly what she called it, but because all these planets lining up, there's a lot of um, um, s- stuff in the atmosphere creating all these earthquakes and volcano eruptions and stuff like that. And I seriously just feel like I'm under attack every day. And when I get up in the morning, it's like um don't be surprised about your day. Don't get angry about your day. Don't get caught off guard about your day. And that's just where I'm at right now.
It's
Yeah.
called warfare, sis. It's called warfare. Remember when I was telling? I think I was telling both of you guys that sometimes the hardest people to wake up. Sometimes the hardest people to wake up have the most anointing. You know what I mean? The reason you can't really wake them up, and sometimes because they such asleep, is because the enemy don't want you to because see people that's caught up in the world, they know they a lot of them are so into the world, that in a sense, them waking up will reveal the enemy's plans. Like for real. So when you sit there and think about it, all of us have that when we were awakening, the enemy never wanted that anointing to go out into the world. He never wanted us talking on a platform like this. He never wanted us to all of us to even come together. That's not mind just one of us talking on the platform. Now he don't want us if all of us come together and we all figuring out and we all examining our awakening and saying, hey, and then all of the gifts of the Most High start working at the same time. He never want that to happen. In a way, So once you have that awakening, it's gonna be that warfare. You know what I'm saying? Cause see, once you awake, you gotta put like it was saying about the armor. You gotta put that shield on immediately. See, I didn't know that when I first awoke. When I first awoke, I thought that I'm good. Now I thought I knew so much and whatnot. But as soon as I start walking around with that knowledge and I start walking around with the word and speaking the word, man, he started attacking me. And the Most High was saying the whole time, put your shield on. Put that shield on. You can't walk down the street like you used to walk down the street no more. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That light is on. You walking down a dark street, and everybody like the darkness, and you got a little light. That little light that come out the lighter. It ain't used to be. It ain't used to be. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big light, but when you walking down that dark street, it's blinding everybody, and it's messing with
It's
everybody. So everybody's coming from everywhere. So we gotta
Yeah.
have that shield. You gotta have that shield. Just like I think Rouse, I think you posted that prayer in the group. I felt every bit of that. I felt every bit of
What's
that prayer. You know what I mean? Because
I got
that's a
that from Truth
warfare prayer.
Unedited. I got that from Truth
Yeah,
Unedited.
yeah.
That was on
very
the
powerful.
closing the doors on spiritual warfare and stuff like that. Like closing the doors on generational curses and things like that. That was on the video
Right,
from last night. So when I
right.
saw those prayers, because man, I'm still going through some things and generational curses and things that I kind of feel like I'm still going through. So I know if I'm still going through it, there's got to be somebody else that's going through it. And I said plenty of times, I have no problem, talking with folks about, you know, certain afflictions and things like that, just for transparency. Like, look, you ain't the only one. You're not the only one that's going through some
Right.
things. You know what I'm saying? We all are going through some things. And that's the only way we can heal our hood is to have that transparency of one another. So
Yeah.
that's why I do it. And it's so important. So it's like um back to this friend of mine and everything. I can only hope and pray, that the Most High, actually, well, that they will take serious what the Most High has provided for them to understand. Because I pray that they haven't fully made the full on choice to walk away, because it would be a really, really, really sad thing to see this person fall completely away. They have a very good heart on themselves, and I like what you said, sis, earlier on about potential. Like when I said that, they I see so much great potential in this person, and the way that you broke down potential versus kinetic, like shoot, all that potential is just wasted energy. They ain't doing nothing. I need that
Mhm.
kinetic energy,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
that makes sense. Like that makes sense. Um, so yeah, I just want to definitely pray for this person, and pray that they change their mind, and come back to the Most High, and put on their spiritual armor, you know. But other than that, I'm about ready to go ahead and get up and off of here. It's been 3 hours so far. I want to go ahead and take us on out in prayer, if that's all right with y'all.
Not a problem.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings you've given us and the blessings that you will give. But most importantly, thank you for the love that you gave us to save us. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you humbly and peaceably today, and we thank you for anyone and everyone that's tuned in to even watch a couple minutes of scripture that we've been reading tonight, and going over. I can only hope and pray that somebody, reads these scriptures and hears your word and finds obedience, especially in some of the things we had spoken on that spiritual strength, and warring off, Jezebel spirits and lust, and then also listening to your commandment as far as go forth and multiply, and to not be caught up in the lust and whoredom. But when they get to the part to where they're allowed to go forth and multiply, that they do multiply and they don't transgress and put the seed somewhere else. Um, so, Father, we definitely want to pray for the friend in which I was talking about. You know who they are, you know their heart, you know their needs. Um, we pray that their heart will change, that they will take on this spiritual armor, and to not let it go to waste, to pick it up, polish it, put it on, make sure it fits, tighten it up here and there, and allow you to refine them, and bring them into your truth and to the truth, which is your truth, Father, in fullness, and being ready and ready for you. Um, in Yahushua holy name we pray. Amen.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Well, family, Sharita, did you want to say, okay, let's see, aquaponics. What's that, sis? Miss B? Yeah, I'll wait a couple moments. Um, yep. Once you wake up, you get attacked like crazy. The devil will not attack what's not a threat to him,
Mhm.
and that's why people that, you know, man, we was, yeah, definitely in agreement on that, brother Javier. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what sis was just saying right here. Once you wake up, you start seeing the world for what it is. The devil really won't start attacking you until the day it's a wrap. And this person right here, um, trying to go back up.
But that's why we gotta pray for each other too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're not awakening. We're not awakening yet. But we gotta pray for each other to stay, to keep. You know what I'm saying? Pray for the Most High to keep us here. You know what I mean?
I'm man, I'm praying the Most High get us up and out of here. You got to go.
Right,
I'm
right,
I'm ready to go,
right.
fam.
Yeah,
Like
that fleeing spirit
Yeah,
is definitely on me too.
it's I'm
right.
ready to
Yeah,
go. Like it is
right,
no,
right,
it don't look
right.
good
Hey,
down here.
hey, let me make y'all laugh, man.
Go ahead.
You know that that Eddie Murphy movie came out, that Coming to America, that part two came out. I think it came out yesterday or last night. Man, I was watching it, bro, and like, man, I was just looking at all the Africa stuff, and I was like, man, I'd have never went back. You know, Like, I was never going back to America. And I was just,
Right.
it's a funny movie, Eddie Murphy and stuff like that. You know how he had it, but his part two came out. It was pretty decent, and I
But
gotta watch it
20
again because it
years
dropped a
later,
little bit of clues. Yeah, it dropped a lot of clues though, because it was showing the difference between when you really pay attention to it. You gotta look at it with spirit. You gotta have spiritual eyes to know what you're looking at.
mhm,
But it was showing the difference between the Hamitic people, like the Hamitic tribes that was coming in there and acting crazy and stuff like that, and then it was showing the difference between the Negro tribes, or how they was like. If you look at it, you could see who was the Ashanti and who was the Bantu, who they was trying to portray. You know what I'm saying? They dressed like these people, these Bantus and stuff like that. That's who Eddie Murphy tried. The royal people was dressing like. And then these Hamitic tribes were coming in there with basically no clothes on, doing flips, and you know what I mean? Like it, if
Right.
you really pay attention and watch it good, but you gotta know what you're looking at. I'm not saying Eddie Murphy was dropping jewels on the on the stuff. But I'm saying, you know what I mean? You know how when you just watching anything that's worldly, even a movie, you could, if your eyes is open, you can see certain things. You know what I mean? You can pick up stuff from the Matrix. You know what I mean?
definitely. I don't look at movies the same way. I don't look at them just purely for entertainment value anymore.
Right, right.
I used to be one of those people that would be quiet through the whole movie, enjoy it, and clap at the end. Now I pause movies, rewind, hold up what they say, Google stuff, and
That's
everything
me.
else.
Yeah, that's me too. That's me too. That's how I be. That's me
Doing
too.
detective work while watching a movie.
Yes. I didn't let. Oh, you said, well, you're not gonna get away with saying it that fast. You talk fast. I don't think slow. Keep on.
Huh. Huh. I hear you. Well, family, let's go ahead and get up and out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the outro video, and we will link back up hopefully Tuesday evening. If y'all are free Tuesday evening, definitely let me know so that way we can go ahead and set up another one for Tuesday evening sometime.
Okay. All right,
We
family.
definitely could do
Shabbat
that.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
family.
shalom, Israel. Love y'all.
Definitely. Let's go ahead and get up and out of here. Shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom to you all, family abroad. Love you. Peace.